Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by explaining something. I'm original, and my wife, myself and my son for the last 15 years have been wandering around this country finding ancient artifacts that have not been found before. We have created a lot of problems with the Australian government. I have about at least 15 different formal complaints, and most are threatening to put me in jail. I've had phone calls, I've had emails by the hundreds, literally, and it's always been about the same thing. I need to explain something as we start this process. It's a fairly long one, but I need to give a background to this to explain how it is that all this stuff we've got here has turned up with us. It's very important you understand how that came about. Now, I've got to make a point. Archaeologists, I've done a couple of years of archaeology before I stormed out at university. Archaeologists go onto site once they've got approval to go onto site by university, by a government agency, and then they go to a site and they expect the elders to give up the secrets. There's one problem. There are different types of secrets we have. Some we can share with children because they weren't initiated. And that's what the archaeologists get. They get the children's story. Why? Where's their cuts? Where's their ceremony? They don't get it. They didn't do ceremony. Yeah, they've got degrees, but that means nothing when you're working with people old way. So we went about this differently. I've got degrees, but there's not, well, I had half a degree in archaeology, but walked out. My situation's different. I was called down to country by who I think is the greatest elder that's still alive, and he passed on recently, which is Kano, Ramangeri elder. And I was asked to go down there. They'd read 3 of our books, and the elders decided they wanted to talk to us. And I asked Kano, what time will I be coming back? He said, sometime, which means I couldn't buy a return ticket. Turned out I was there for a week and a half. This is not a normal ceremony where you go somewhere, they burn a bit of smoke and then smoke you. This is not what took place here. Towards the end there, after about a week and a half, Kano came up to me and gave me this stick about this long, which was magnificent. I wasn't allowed to photograph it, and no one else was allowed to look at it. He said, hold this for an hour, we'll come back and we'll work out whether you get ceremony. He came back, held the stick, and at that stage I had my black folder I carried everywhere with me to write stuff down because I was doing this and writing it down. And he picked up the folder and he threw it. He said, you won't need this where you're going. So then I sat, well, didn't sat, I stood. And there were about 7 men sitting around. They were singing songs. And Kano was singing songs too in first language, and we'll talk about that later. That's what that book's about. The first language was spoken around the world, same one. And then he would come up and whisper things in my ear. And the things he whispered in his ear, which I can't tell you, were my directions, what I was supposed to do. And very simply what he said was, go out there, we will give you our evidence and you give it to them in a whitefellow way they can understand. So my job was to put science and empirical evidence next to what I was given. Now what does that give me? It gives me open access, because Kano was the person who gave me ceremony, to anywhere. And I've been all over. A lot of times I've been with this bloke here who's filling in for my son today, and if he makes any mistakes, I will insult him. I did that with my son all the time, so it won't be any different. He's aware of that. He's seen it happen before. So he'll be watched very carefully all the way through this. By the way, I haven't told you, you are psychically supposed to know when I want the slide changed. Okay, so we'll be watching that very carefully. So start turning on that pineal gland, if you could, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, I need to understand to begin with. Now, what does that create? It creates a situation. I'm going to use a quote from the top archaeologist in Australia. And he got a PhD writing about us and Slater, about how we're pseudo-archaeologists, we're a load of rubbish. And in that article, he wrote one thing that a lot of people read and then came to me. And I want to thank Dennis, I won't say his last name because that could be slanderous, for what he did. Because what he said was this. He said, yes, the Strongs do know elders, and they do trust them, and they don't trust us. We'll have to do something about it. And by the way, later on they told us what they're going to do about it. Their way to deal with this is very simply, anything we say or write, no one is allowed to comment on, and no one is allowed to make any form of response to. If you do, you will be banished from Ozark, which is the main archaeological site in Australia. That's a standard rule. Our name is not allowed to be mentioned. So the way that mainstream have dealt with this is basically to ignore it and not engage with us. So, I want to take you now to the end of the ceremony, because this relates to what we're doing here today. At the end of the ceremony, one of the other elders, not Kano, but Peter Evans, came up to me. And I went down there because they told me there was a time way back, 10, 15, 100,000 years, when the original people sailed around the world. And I came down for that. And he said to me, "You said sail, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah, I did." He said, "You do know there's other ways we got around then?" I said, "Oh, no, Peter. I'm not going down the Eric von Däniken path. We're doing archaeology to do with original people in Australia. We're not touching that business." And he looked at me and he said, "Is that what you think?" I said, "No, I'm not doing it." He said, "Okay, fine." Okay, so off I went. And I waited because I had to get a phone call. This is how it works. When you're working old way, you have to wait when you're told to start working. I said, "I'm ready now." And they said, "We'll get back to you." About a month later, Peter rang up. He said, "It's time to start." He said, "What you're going to do is you're going to start by doing the stars." I said, "Mate, I told you before, I don't want to do that business." I said, "When I go outside, I can't even find the Southern Cross, and I'm not lying, I don't know where it is. It's out there somewhere. I know the Pleiades is up there too, but I don't know where it is, but I know it's up there." And when I do ceremonies to the Pleiades, people say, "Where do I point?" I said, "Just point up. It's up there somewhere." So what happened was, where was I up to?
You got a phone call.
See, first time. Evan always knows where I'm up to. I got a phone call, very good. Was that you that said that? Excellent. The phone call was this: start working. He said, "You're going to do the stars." I said, "Mate, I know nothing about the stars." He said, "You're going to start with archaeology that relates to stars." I said, "I've never seen anything." The next day, I got a phone call from John Gallard, who was the senior park ranger of the Snowy Mountains and Brisbane Waters, which is Gosford. And he said to me, "We know what you're doing, and I've got a lot of information I want to show you, because the archaeologists won't look at it. I'm going to take you down to the Snowy Mountains and show you 2 astronomical sites," the day after I got the phone call. And from that point on, I want to make the point, when I go somewhere, I go with Kano's stamp. That gets me things that no one else gets. Now at the moment, we have around about 300 of these rocks. 250 of them are not here. They're in Adelaide, on Ramanjeri country, buried, because twice the government have stopped us from putting them on country so people can come and do ceremony with them. They've done that twice. And it's been an ongoing concern. Probably about a year ago, we were 1 month off setting up the whole routine. We had 3 acres given to us by a millionaire. He built the buildings up there, and a month before we got down there, he was arrested and put in jail. And I won't go into the details for that, but it was all trumped up. So this has been an ongoing process. Every rock here, all 300 of them, how many have Evan and I picked up? None. How many have we bought? None. They're given to us. We do not go on to country and take anything off country. We don't have that right. What I do have the right, through Kano and other elders, and there's quite a few of them that have given me this right, I have the right to act as a custodian of these rocks and all the artefacts here. And I'm going to tell you, quite a few of these artefacts have that same UFO imprint that Peter told me I was going to do. So the moral of this story before we start, ladies and gentlemen, is I made it clear at the start we were not going to do UFOs. But I also, when I was whispered to, I was told by Kano, whatever the elder tells me, you accept as the truth. So if they keep doing it time after time after time, eventually you have to do what you're supposed to do. I don't want to do what the archaeologists do in the universities, where they go and find what they're looking for. And there's a great U2 song about it. I still haven't found what I'm looking for, and they haven't. They haven't, and we have. So what we're going to take you through is a journey, and we'll do it step by step. And we're going to break it up into 2 parts, if and why. First part, if aliens are here, which we're going to talk about in a sec. The second part, more important, why? That should be the question that the Pentagon should have been looking at when they were doing their investigation, when the US Senate committee was doing their investigation. We'll talk about that in a sec. It shouldn't have been if, it should have been why. And that's what we're going to talk about in the finish. I'm breaking this up into 2 parts. The first part will be proof. What you will never be seeing in our presentation, and by the way, that's obviously Kano, you will not be seeing any UFOs flying through the sky. We don't give that as evidence. We give you evidence in the ground. And that's what we're going to do now. Now I'm going to start with a base. And it's this. There's one dreaming story in Australia. And I know there's a couple of original people in this room at the moment that know this is true. Only one that every tribe, without exception, is aware of. There is no tribe, and I've been everywhere. You know, you remember the story about what happened in West Australia when they blew up that cave? 4 years before, they were trying to blow up another cave there at a place called Gangamaya. And I was called there to write an article about it, and it was dated at 42,500 years. And they wanted to blow the whole thing up. And I wrote an article about it, and I knew I had no chance. But straight after that, the iron ore price went down, and because this was a low-grade deposit, they walked away from it. But they can go back and blow it up. But I want to tell you a story about that. When I was there, Eddie McPhee, the elder that called me in there, he pointed that way. He said, 4 kilometres over there. This is the dreaming story for the main sister from the Pleiades. But over there, at Yukon Gorge, is the dreaming story for all the sisters. So which one did they blow up? All the sisters. And that is why they did it. They did it, and they're doing it everywhere. There is a deliberate attempt right now to destroy all the sacred sites. You may not know this, but I'm going to tell you this now. Every Lands Council in New South Wales has been sent a missive by the government saying, we want you to develop, and we'll help you and become silent partners and pay you nothing and make sure you get that development through. Did you know the largest developer on the Central Coast is the Darkingham Lands Council? Now, when the Lands Council was made by Gough Whitlam, I don't think he had this vision of them becoming LJ hookers. But that's what they are now. So places are being destroyed because they're so sacred, they don't want them to come back. So that's one of the stories we've got. That's a story that goes to every tribe in this continent. So therefore, if you say to me, oh, the Pleiades doesn't exist and UFOs don't exist, you're questioning the dreaming of every tribe in this country. You're saying they're lying. And who was here before the whitefellas were? They were. And for how long? Hundreds of thousands of years, not 60, hundreds of thousands of years, and often dealing with them. And this is what we're going to find. The second dreaming story relates to this rock. And you'll see it in a sec, because we're going to start with the rocks first. And Kano gave me this dreaming story. And he told me this rock is basically what you would call, and you'll find out more about this later, the Rosetta Stone of archaeology. This is the rock. The Smithsonian Institute have approached me twice and said there's nothing like it in the world, and we would like to take it off you and store it. I'm sure the box on the 3rd level down will be secure, and lots of public will get to look at it. And it's funny because a professor lined this up for me, and he thought he was doing me a favour, and he was quite excited when he told me, they want your rock. I said, John, they ain't getting my rock. It's the Smithsonian. He thought they were great. He didn't quite get that. So, ladies and gentlemen, this story goes like this, and this is what Kano told me. He told me that a long, long time ago, when the aliens came, and this is the story on this rock, which he can read, and very few people can. When they came, they were represented as the goanna. That's the totem. Now, I don't know if you know much about the goanna, but the goanna is the giver of wisdom for us. The dreaming serpents you know of, they make the place, but the goanna is the animal that gives us wisdom. And I can tell you now, a goanna is way smart. If you have a chook pen and you want a fox proof, it'll cost you $500. You want a goanna proof, it costs $3,000. I know, we've got one. And the goannas hang around the outside and they can't get in. They are amazingly intelligent animals. They are the givers of wisdom. And the story was the goanna was coming. It's obviously from the Pleiades with this wisdom. But we, the original people, did not let them enter. We used our magic. And the crow and the eagle fought against the goanna and stopped them from landing. I've got to make this point. This is not a conquering. Then what happened was, as the fight continued, the crow realised, the crow being so smart, that they should come. And they should work with us. And they should share their genes. And we're going to talk about that later too, because we've got proof of that. And they did. And then what happened was, because the crow joined the goanna, the fight took place, the eagle lost, they landed here, and then what happened was the goanna asked for a token of the fact he beat the eagle, and the eagle gave the goanna the claws, and with that he put his laws on this rock, on the two sides. Now further on, when we look at this, I hadn't asked you to put the rock up yet. We're going to do this gradually. This is your first slide, bud. I mean, first go, and you raced ahead. He's off to a bad start. I give my son a score, and I'll be giving Shane a score at the finish. He's lost 2 points. The best you can do is 8 from here on, mate, so you'll need to be on your toes. We just needed that for now. What we're going to do now is, for the next 20-odd minutes, I'm trying to time this in a way that everything fits in, we're going to go through some of these rocks. But I needed to say one more thing before we looked at them. So you may have looked at that, but I want you to forget. Uncle Marbach sat down with me one day and told me about these rocks. And he said, the old ones have been looking for these for 50 years. And he said, we were particularly interested in what they call the star rocks collection. These are the rocks that have been coated and have symbols like maps or an incredibly straight lines. And I'll show you one here, rather big one here, where it's got straight lines. It's got 2 different measurements where it's cut into the rock. Now, as we look at this, and we'll now go to Roz's rock number 1. There you go, he's away. And we'll look at this rock here, and you'll notice very simply it's been cut. Now, I want you to think about something. We're supposedly dealing with original people that only ever had stick, stone, and bone. So everything you see here has to fit into that province, and if one of the rocks doesn't, and this one's already been agreed to have not fitted in, otherwise the Smithsonian wouldn't want it, that breaks the rule for everything. I only need one of these rocks to break the rule, but this one's straight lines. So what does that tell me straight away? I got that from my elders. This is a star rock. Now, most of the star rocks, and I'll hold this one up and you'll see it later, are coated. And you can see, if you look very carefully there, you'll see the dots there of the rock underneath, and it's been shaped. And we'll talk about that rock later. All of the star rocks are coated, but only 2 of them are double coated with 2 different colours, which is number 1 and number 2. And if you hold them up together, you'll see the side where there's no markings on it. It's identical, and you'll see that up there anyway. So Shane, let's go through rock number 1 and find out this star rock, what it's about. On to the second one, please. Now, this is where it gets sublime. Dr. Derek Cunningham from England, he's the world expert. He goes around to all the ancient caves and looks for lines and marks them down, because he believes lines were the first language that was recorded. Mathematics, it's the same everywhere. If it's 13.2 degrees, it's the same no matter where you live. And what he found here is he started marking out the lines on this side, and a third side there. And we're going to go through that, and further on you'll find out what that means. So moving along, please, Shane. Now you'll notice that there's a second sign where there's small lines. Now look how fine those lines are. That's a blade. And it's not a blade that's a rock that's got a bit that's sharp on one side. It's not going to happen. This is not normal stick, stone and bone technology. Keep going, mate. We're going to go through a lot of these. This is the side there. These are all holding rocks. And there's a rough section there which is held like that. The finger sits in there, and you hold the rock, and it always sits on the base of your hand there. The holding rocks have a power. And we'll talk a little bit about that, not as much as I'd like to, because we've got a lot to get through. Okay, next one, please. And then we got to the far side there, and I think after that, yes, there's the angles again. Now, notice what angle appears the most.
33.
Well, guess where Carryong is?
33.
This was found 1.5 metres beneath the surface, about 1 kilometre from the Carryong glyphs. 1.5 metres beneath the surface on the top of Carryong, not the bottom, the top. How long did you take to put that rock down and then cover it 1.5 metres of sandstone? I would say 20 to 30,000 years, at least. I've got stat decks from the 8 people who saw it being dug out of the ground and put on the top of the mound, and they were down 1.5 metres when they found it. So we've got 33 degrees, which happens to be, number 1, the latitude of Carryong, and I believe the Freemasons are quite obsessed by 33 degrees. Wonder why? I wonder where that came from. Okay, let's move along a bit more, please. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Because what Dr. Derek then did was compared this rock with 3 other rocks he'd measured. This one is at Calgary. And of the 21 angles there, 19 can be found on this rock. A coincidence perhaps, but he went further. It's a bit slow. There's a quarter of a mark there. As I said, but he went. That was the time for you to queue up on that. I'm trying to help you through this, Shane. Right, you recognise that place, the Bosnian Pyramid, Dr. Samir. So he pulled a rock out of the tunnel underneath there. Yes, they do have tunnels there, and they still don't think it's a pyramid. And guess what? That rock, this one here, the Bosnian astronomical stone, was discovered near a ravine table, labyrinth, 2015. Well, he measured that one up, and there were 15 angles. Thank you. And of the 15 angles, guess how many are on this one? 15. There's a third rock, which I don't put up because we've made the point. It's got 10 angles, and all 10 are on here. What that means in all is there's 47 angles on 3 rocks. I got 45 on this rock. Coincidence? One's in Bosnia, one's in Germany, and one's in Calgary. I'm spanned around the world. When Slater talks about it, one language that we all spoke, and if you go to the Bible, they'll talk about the Tower of Babel and how bad it was once we stopped speaking one language. They didn't talk about what it was like before, because that's a completely different story, which we will talk about. So we've got an issue here. This is either an amazing coincidence, or this is the Rosetta Stone of the first language, which is what it is. Okay, oh, and by the way, the pattern there, that is the pattern, and that is the pattern for Washington, the original pattern of Washington, the street map, which happens to be identical to the markings on this rock. So when we start to talk about, now you know why the Smithsonian want the rock. By the way, they won't be putting any of this up on the little box that's in the paper inside the box down the bottom that no one sees. That won't be there. Okay, moving along, please. Now, we're comparing the first rock and the second rock. That's number 2, which is coming up now. This is the female rock, which is held in the left hand. It's got a worn piece there and a worn piece there. You hold it like that. And this is a complete... Now, this rock, we're coming back to this one, that's got an infill. Now, does anyone know much about infills? Because I knew nothing. But luckily, I had the head professor of Sydney Uni, geology, wasn't it? You know who he is, don't you? John. Yeah. He said, that is amazing. I'm looking at the rest of the rock thinking, that? Man, look at this, look at this. No, he said that. He said, because that's an infill that's been put in there. They dug into that rock and then put it in there. And then stuck it in there. It's been there for 20,000 years. That's better than super glue. Much better. Keep going, please, mate. There it is again from a different angle. It's on the back here. I'll have these rocks around here. Oh, by the way, I've got to make one very important point here and now. Under no conditions, unless the rocks give permission, is anyone allowed to touch them. I could spend the next 15 minutes telling you about people who've died. And I mean died. I'm not lying. Through touching it. And it's a lie. I made this point clear, and I don't feel bad about the 2 people who did this and another person we saved with that rock there. Anyway, moving along, please. Right, we've got to this side here. The infilling. Up the top there again. Pointer. Pointer. Oh, no, infilling up to there. You're going to go, that bit. That. Well, anyway, you're going to go and have a look at it. It's metal. In the infill, in the second one, there is a tiny, tiny piece of metal. You put it out in the sun and it really shines up. It actually looks the shape of a skull with a microscope, and it's inside there. Original people weren't supposed to make metal, but it's in there. Now you know why the Smithsonian want this rock. Keep going, please, mate. Right, and there's a close-up. Thank you, Shane, for doing that. And there it is there. Okay, moving along. We've still got the imprinting, haven't we? Yeah, that's an imprint. That's been punched into the rock and pushed down, but it didn't break the surface. John said you would need 3,000 to 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit, Celsius, to do that, to imprint like that without breaking the surface, because the surface underneath is a different rock. You can see that. It's a white rock. It's been coated. Next one. Right, there's the imprint again. Go past that one quickly. We've got a lot to go. Oh. That's Evan's sense of humour. We'll forget that. Yes, they are. Oh, they are in a couple of other rocks, and they'll do the same thing. They've probably got a box set aside with our name on it, but they're not going to get anything. Right. Now, the next thing you need to understand is there are patterns. These rectangular rocks, and there's 4 of them there, all have markings on one side one side with a few marks and one side clean. That's the rule. So even the shape of the rock has a meaning of itself. You can't have 4 of these rocks with exactly the same type of marking each time and then put it off as a coincidence 4 times over. Coincidence is not a word blackfellas believe in. Everything has a purpose. Okay, now we go to rock number 1 and rock number 2. And what do we find out? Female and male. These rocks have never, ever been separated. You would break a balance if they weren't. They need to be together, and they will always stay together. They are the prime rocks. The second one has a lot more languages. This one has 2.5 languages. It has sign language with a thumb. It has this language here with those lines like that, and then the thin lines. This one's got a lot more. Now have a look close up there. Can you see that cut? Yeah. That cut, very fine, runs all the way around the letter A. Oh, by the way, you'll find out later, we had a language with 16 letters. We're going to get to that later. The letter A, but it was cut. What with? That's a hard rock. How do you cut it? That precisely. And then make that mark that comes with it. I believe it's laser. I don't even think it's a blade. I think we've gone beyond that. And what you're seeing now are the star rocks. The star rocks were made by us and made by them. Now some of these other rocks are not made by them, they're just ours. That's most of them. Most of the ones I've got today are dual ownership. Next one please, mate. Right, there's the small thin lines running across there again. Razor sharp, very thin, so we've got different blades running, different size cuts at the same time. Next one again, mate, we're going through this fairly quickly. And I've got to tell you, this has been held by 2 original women. When the original old way women see this rock in particular, they fall in love with it. They really do. And a couple of times I've let them touch it because it just calls them. This is for women. I'm the only male that can ever touch these rocks because I've got a special privilege because I'm looking after them. They don't harm me. If any other male was to touch this rock, it would kill him. And very quickly I'm going to give you a story about this rock, about my wife. You know that one, don't you? My wife was a painter. Professional painter, very good. And she decided to paint this rock, found it. And she had the rock there, she had it on the table. I was about 3 rooms away, and she did that to move it. As she touched it, she screamed out in agony. I was about 4 rooms away at the time, and I heard her. I said, have you touched the rock? The rock told me straight away what had happened. She said, yes. And when I got to her, there was a pain running up her arm. And I asked her about a year ago, I asked her, look, if you rated that pain from 1 to 10, what would you give it? 1 from a dull ache, 10 to agonising, you can't bear it. She said it was an 8, but it was running up her arm. It would have continued going up her arm, went into her heart and killed her. But I got to her in time, I smoked her, and again, used that rock. And she was okay. Why did it do it to her? We're looking after the rock. Simple. Male. Female? No. This one, female. No male, except me. Well, so far. If I drop dead, we found out I was wrong. Okay, next one, please. Right, that's how it's held, like that. I've showed you before with the left hand only. You can never pick this rock up with the right hand because the rock would then say, okay, you shouldn't be holding me. Next one, please, again, mate. And there's the markings on this one. This has got a lot more different markings. It's got like that computer code with lines running across, shapes on it, then the pecking. That's a language too. There are 7 different languages on these rocks we've detected, 7 different ways you can express information on it. There's a close-up of it, and you'll notice they didn't touch the ridge. They just kept it to there. All of these rocks, and the one thing you're going to find about all of these surrounded rocks, do you know what they share with each other? Nothing. And none of them relate to totems and the designs the original people have today. And some of the elders have said, well, they're our rocks, but we don't know that ceremony anymore. It's gone. It's way back. This is from way, way back. Next one, please, mate. Done that. Ah, we're up to this one. Beautiful rock. This one here. I'm going to hold this up now, and you'll notice that there's that. You can see it's been coated. It's very clear. Now, here's a question for you. How do you manage to get the coat on each side exactly the same thickness? How do you do that? And you can see it like that. They've cut this rock. Then they've marked it. But can you all see, and I'll try and hold this up a bit, can you see that ridge? And I'll hold it up now. Can you see a ridge on the top here? This is the most important piece of technology you're going to see. I'll just make sure everyone can see it. It's running across there. Do you know why that's important? Because if you look there, you'll find they melted the top so my thumb could rest there on the right-hand side, then it ran down the side. But just like a candle wax, there was no heat here. This wasn't heated. They managed to localise the heat to this area here, and you can see it's pushed across like that, so my thumb can sit there, and it ran down the side like a candle wax effect, but did not run down, it hardened, which means they managed to move all of that metal, rock, just there, and it didn't touch there or there. What does that sound like again? Laser. I keep coming back to laser because I see evidence. That how do you do that today? That would be difficult today to do this, to localise the heat to there, melt it down the side, then form up again. Then it gets even weirder. That one, can you go back one for a sec, please, mate? See that there? Derek Cunningham said, oh my God, I know that one. It's Corona Borealis. It's not, it's Corona Australis. Is anyone in this room familiar with the constellation Corona Australis? They were. That's a perfect, on the top there, that is a perfect map of that. Do you know why you don't know where it is? You can't see it. Think about that for a sec. You can't see it, I can't see it, but they did. And they had what? A campfire with some sticks, stones and bones, and they managed to see Corona Australis. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense, unless they knew about it to begin with. Okay, moving along, please. We've done that. It's actually Corona Australis, but we fixed that up. And there it is there. You can see the pecs there, locked in like that, and that is exactly where the stars are. But you can go out tonight and look for it. Good luck. Mind you, I could look for the Southern Cross and find it, so it doesn't matter for me. Right, we've got another one. Now what you're finding here is this skill they have is different. This particular rock is a perfect triangle, and what's happened is the top, it's been rubbed off. It's been held so often, you can see the points there where the fingers go. It's been held and rubbed and rubbed and rubbed. But what you're going to see is that's actually a raised ridge. It's not a cut. And you can see the rock's been melted on top because that's what's underneath. Now if you look at one side, it's got a raised ridge. You look at this side, it's got points, and on this side it's got ridges again. This one's got curls on it. This has actually been formed on the rock, melted, and then turned into patterns. Now we know the ridging goes all the way down the bottom because there's one down there too. And it's been held that often that every side of that triangle, this one is 5 mils thinner on every side. So all of the coat's been rubbed off. How long has this rock been around for? A long, long time. But not cuts this time, patterns. 3 different patterns on 3 different sides. Everything about this is not in our history books. Keep going, please, mate. Oh, that one. The crocodile riding. Oh, thank God for that. That's one of the healing rocks. This is a fascinating rock. It's a beautiful piece. You can come and have a look at this later and take photos of it. You're quite welcome to do that. But again, as I said before, please don't touch it because we'll need a defib. And I'll need to get my rocks out and it'll be all messy. We don't need that. I'm sure the ladies and the gentlemen running this show don't want it. You're not insured for this, are you? Death by rock? No. No, then don't touch it. Okay, this is one of the very few, this one here, I know the story too. It's called crocodile riding. It's been around for about 80,000 years. There's Panorami's got stuff like this. And what the story is, it's a healing rock for women. But it's got one other thing. When you throw it, wherever you throw it, it'll make a different pattern. And that tells you what the future brings. That's a prediction rock. Each rock has got a different role, a different idea what it's supposed to do. Next one, please, mate. Oh, this one. An elder threw this one at me. Look at that. How do you make that with rock on rock? Where's the percussion bulbs there? There's none. There's no percussion bulbs here. This site, there are literally thousands of rocks like this, and the elder picked this one up, said, oh, here's a bit of rubbish, take that and show everyone. I've seen rocks there that seep oil runs out of them. I've seen rocks of every possible display, and this sort of stuff here, I've seen rocks this big with that marking on it. Now it's been broken up there, it went further to a point there. You can't make that without a blade. You can't do it with rock on rock, you can't do it with stick on rock, and you can't do it with bone on rock. So the first thing we're learning now is there was a technology in this country that was far more advanced than you realise. We know who gave it to them. We're going to find that out soon enough. It's a step-by-step process. What we're showing you now is evidence. Next one, please, mate. Oh, that one, I didn't bring it. It's an ant person, obviously. And look, it weighed 3 kilos, and as it was now, because my son couldn't come, we couldn't bring all the rocks. And I had to ram it into one thing, way overweight, and it's pretty heavy, isn't it? Bloody hell. That's all I could get in. That weighed about 3 kilos. Right, that one just went. We did have a quick chat about that. Could we go back to 4 and 6? I know I should be moving along a bit. But you'll notice there too, that on the other side of that, you can't see it where the head is. On the other side, there's a piece of rock on the back, about this long, that wide, and about that thick. It's been stuck on the back. Lots of sticking going on here. But think about this. This sticking lasts for thousands of years. What do we make? Super glue. How long will that last for? 10 years. Next one, please, mate. Okay, a silicon. That's this one here. This is quite interesting, and I want you to listen to this. There's the sound of rock on rock. Familiar with that? It's a clapstick. Sounds exactly like a clapstick, but it's rock. By the way, all of the silicons have that sound. But I can't bring them all this time, sorry, because we only have one bag. I was going to bring a couple and play different sounds. They were even higher pitches. I've got one that's about 2 pitches higher than this, and it's rock. Doesn't make sense, does it? What you're seeing time after time as we do this is, where did this technology come from? We'll get there. We're doing this in a roundabout way. Oh, this one I love. This silicon. By the way, the word silicon is a Whitefellow word. It means cylinder and cone. Brilliant, isn't it? This one here is made from petrified wood. It's been cut straight down the centre, petrified wood. What do you use to cut petrified wood? Normally a diamond tipped blade to cut it. It's been perfectly cut. Then there's a line that runs all the way around all 4 sides and joins up, and your thumb sits like that. Silicons are magic rocks. I won't talk about much of them today. They have a power that sits within them. And I've got one silicon that does work for me, but I've never gone through with it. I've always thrown the silicon on the ground because I don't know what's going to happen at the finish. We have to be careful with some of this stuff. Right, the next one. This one here. It's got 29 lines. None are the same. We took this to a geologist, said, I've seen core samples in my life, but nothing as smooth as this. This is a silicon too. Different type. It's been broken there, but that is perfectly smooth. When you put it on the light will shine on it because it's that smooth. Now, how do you do that? I got my stone, I got my stick, and I got my bone. I haven't got this. Doesn't work. Next one. I'm doing this very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, because we actually have about 15 hours, 20 hours of stuff. So we're racing along. I normally don't go, this one just came in. Oh, man. Are they big? This one. 2 sides. All spirals, not circles, spirals. And what they do, and we shouldn't really, that's okay. We've got others we've sent back. We sent back 6 of these because they were made with a stone. They weren't made like these, right? And they're much rougher, and the lines don't always show up, and they run off in different directions. These have been cut. Now, we found out something fascinating about this. There's another gentleman who got some of these too, and we both got them in. They were both picked up January 1953. I thought they were stolen. Could you imagine a blackfellow giving this up to anyone? I just assumed it had to be stolen. Turned out, the other one, I'm not sure it's on the next one. Have a look and we'll see if it's there. Oh, good. It is. Turned out another guy got these. Now, he got them from a lady in 1953 from the same place, and I won't tell you where that is. And the elders said, please take all of these from us. Because, is there anyone here that's a Pentecostal? Oh, thank God for that. I'm not having to go at the Pentecostals, because this is what they said. Their tribes there were all being evangelized by Pentecostals, and the Pentecostal told them if they've got anything that doesn't look like Jesus, it's from the devil, and destroy it. And people within their own tribes were destroying these objects. So he was given those ones, and can you notice the similarity with that shape there? I've seen it side on, it's identical and the same. I think on the next one, try one more. Yeah, chipped away. It's silver. Now, we've been told this was made from Mesref. We were told this was made by the aliens 280,000 years ago and given to Aboriginal people. It's for a ceremony, which I can't talk about, but I can talk about the second one. Okay, go back off that one, please. Can you go back to the other one? I want to talk about this one now. Go back one more, and we'll skip them. This is an interesting one. See that? Beautiful. It's been chipped on the bottom, because that's where your hand goes when you hold it. All these rocks are meant to be held. But this is where it gets interesting. Auntie Trudy Roberts, I let her touch this one. She's touched a few of the rocks, and she said to me, this is used for levitation. The aliens gave us this story. I looked at Trudy and said, oh, Trudy, levitation? Weighs about a kilo and a half, it ain't going to levitate. That's what I thought. Anyway, we asked Mesref, and I said to Mesref, and I didn't tell him what Trudy said. I said, Mesref, what's this rock used for? He said, oh, that's for a levitation ceremony. Now, Trudy didn't know what Mesref said, and Mesref didn't know what Trudy said, but they both said this is used for meditation. Now, I don't know what it's used for, but I can tell you this much. You can't make something like that, I'm going to say it again, on any campfire in this country with what you've been told we had. We had a lot more going on here than people realise. Next one, please, mate. Past that, because we've done them. Metal inside, we're going to find. Oh, right. Finished it. Okay, good. I wish I had a clock. What's time? I'm trying to do this so it all fits in. 2? 46. Ah, I should have, I've marked down 50 minutes, I've done it in 46. Sweet. Right. Now, okay. I've shown you some rocks. I've shown you technology that doesn't exist in any school in Australia. Mind you, that might change in 2 months in Brisbane. We'll talk about that later. But for now, I want to talk about the reason why the government have been so vociferous and so constant over the last 2 years trying to put us in jail. I can tell you, to begin with, my letters were this. They were going to give me 6 months to 3 years, $250,000 to $1 million fine. As it went along, I lost the 6 months. And it went to 3 years jail, $750,000. And in the end, it went to 3 years jail and $1 million. And this was going on constantly. I've got that many official letters where I've had to write back 43 questions, 28 questions every time. They have tried everything they can not to get this information out. And I'm locked into a legal bind with this anyway. So what happened in the end is we had found a skull. I was called to a skull somewhere in New South Wales, and I don't even know where it is. I was driven down there. I never met the people in advance. They told me we found a weird skull here without sutures. Now, do you understand why that's an issue? Because everyone in this room shares one thing. You might not have the same face, but you've got the same 3 sutures. Because that's what makes hominids. Lucy was 600. We're 1,300. How did that happen? Because those 3 things don't meet. They bend and flex. Now, you do know that all monkeys, primates, gorillas, orangutans do not have sutures. They have a sagittal keel. So their brains have never grown. And they're supposed to be our ancestors. Well, I'll leave that alone for now. We won't worry about that. That just doesn't quite make sense for me. There's something that doesn't add there. If they've all got no sutures and we have... Anyway, let's go back to this. Here we are. This is the site I was called to. And when I got there, I was a bit shocked because I didn't see this skull. I saw a different one you're going to see later. I looked at that and thought, hang on for a sec. I've got a problem here. Where's the forehead? There isn't one. Now, it looks like I've got a really dumb person there, doesn't it? Agreed? Looks like there's not much there, does it? Yeah. Wait until you see the next picture. Less there, isn't it? Where's the brain? You can't find it, can you? Next picture. There it is. It's at the back. It goes backwards. It slopes behind the eyes. None of your brain, this brain, is above your eyes. 90% of your brain is above your eyes. 3 or 4% for this one. Did you notice how our brain is widest and our skull is widest in the centre? You notice where that's widest? At the back. Do you know how wide your skull is? 13. Do you know how wide that is? 18. Now, I want the ladies to pause and think for a sec. Let's say you've got a child that you're bearing at the moment, and it's this one. And the nurse says, dilate to 10 centimetres. Do you know what you say? Caesarean, please. I'm not doing this. You can't deliver it. You cannot deliver this thing. It's impossible. As an archaeologist, when I looked at the back of the skull, I thought, we've got a problem here. This is not a human. It's not a hominid. And by the way, that's why the government have made rules, and you'll find out what some of the rules are. They're very, I mean, I'm being watched all the time. I've had my ASIO agent since 2015 in December. Yeah, he trains counter-terrorism. He's a very nice person. Okay, next one please, mate. Right, now, we started to dig deeper. The first thing I'm looking at is, pointer, can you go to the nose? No, back. Pointer, can you go to the nose please, mate? See where it is? Starting up here. Now the nose shape, and I'll show you this now, there is the nose shape of a Homo sapien. There's the nose shape of this. Do you notice the difference? We're going to compare and contrast now, ladies and gentlemen, as we go along. Now what's really interesting is when this was originally buried, before the government went and looked at it, oh, I must tell you that, the government have looked at this. They were originally buried in the ground like this, with their knees up like that, hands like that, and knees up against the chest. When I got to it, there were bones thrown everywhere. One of the things they tried to put me in jail for was desecrating the site. Notice that the thing's just left above the ground. I buried the damn thing when I left, and I gave it ceremony with the rocks before I started. I was getting charged for that. Now, what's interesting, can you see that femur bone? Yeah. I didn't dig down, because if I did, I wouldn't be talking to you. I'd already be in jail. I know what I can and can't do. I put that femur bone against mine, and it went from there to there. And I said to people, 5'10", because I'm 5'10", it's exact mix from there to there. But underneath there, you can't see it. When we picked that up, there was a humerus bone, which goes from here to there. And this is where it gets impossible to be a human or a hominin. The humerus bone, yours will measure between 29 to maybe 31 if you're a basketball player and you're 7 foot, okay? And you've got long arms. Maybe that. A gibbon, 35. That's as long as arms go. No. This one, the one I pulled out and put next to my arm, went down to here, but there was no elbow. I measured it at 44, which means it's got to go to 48 at least, which means the arms are going to be basically hanging down near the floor. Here's the problem. Then I measured the width. It's less than an inch. Widest part of the bone. So I've got, now what I've got is this. I've got a being that has eyes that are 46% bigger than ours. Nighttime. You can't come out in the day unless you've got shades on all the time. They weren't born, well maybe they were born with shades, I don't know that. Nighttime. But secondly, I've got an arm that doesn't perform a purpose on this planet. Gravity's too high. But if this being was born on a planet where the gravity was lower and the sunlight wasn't as bright, do you know what? It'd be fine. It'd be okay. Now, if we just found one of these, that'd be okay. It could be a mutation. We found 4. 4. Spread over 2,000 kilometres in 4 different tribal areas. 1 in the desert, 2 near the river, the Murray River, and 1 on the coast near Warrnambool. So it's not one tribe. And it's not a mutation, because this being, by the way, had his front 2 teeth pulled out, which is exactly the same ceremony they did until Cook came. He was given ceremony. He was given a position like this, facing the sun, overlooking the water. This was an important being, a very important being. Next one, please, mate. And there I am, digging it up. Now, by the way, I don't dig with blade, I dig with wood. And you'll see the rocks are around there at the moment. And you can see I haven't made that story up. There's the first part of the skull, there's the second part of the skull. It's legit. It's legit. This does not fit into any story of a being on this planet. This is what the government is concerned about. If this ever got into mainstream, people would ask questions. By the way, I'll tell you in a sec what we've got lined up for this skull when we finish doing this first one. Moving along, please, mate. Oh, yeah. There's a cut on the skull, and it's fused. That's an operation. On the skull, on the brain. Oh, yeah, we did that. By the way, we did. We did do trepidation on the skull, trepanning on the skull. We did do that, but that's been cut. It's just a minor point, but it's worth bearing in mind. Next one, please, mate. And then there's the second one, like this one. Now, this one, by the way, measures about 3 to 4 mils. That one, 15 mils. That one over there, 15. Now, the problem with that one is, and this one, can you see the sutures? Can you see the sutures? Look at the back. There's none. There's none. There's no sutures on this. We looked, and look how thick it is. That's 15. Do you realise that's the thickest skull that's ever been found in Australia? And the government don't want to look at it. And by the way, these are models. I've got the original. And who made the original for me? The guy that used to work for the Australian Museum to do their skulls, until they put him in jail for 5 years. Boy, wasn't he keen to work with us, because the Australian Museum hate us. He really was keen. And what happened was, it took him 6 months when he started. We're going to go on to the second one now, please, mate, I think. No, there's that first one again with the thick one. We'll leave that for now. We'll go on to the second one. Hey? Oh, the jaw, I forgot to mention that. Quite important. See this being here? That's his tooth. What do you notice about the tooth? Look at the roots. You want to go to the dentist and say, pull it out? Do your teeth grow like that? No. 3 roots coming from, and there's all the skull there. We had the bones for a while. The government took it off us. They didn't let us analyse that. I was given that by the elders to take away and analyse. They took it off me. I would have gone to jail for that one. I had to give in on that one. I had no choice. Okay, now we get to the second one. This is where it gets interesting, and now I can hold it up for you. This is what he made. It took him 6 months to do this. There it is. There's the 8 pieces of skull, and that's how they're put together, like that. So when I'm saying there's no forehead, I'm now showing it to you. This is a different skull to the other one. This is completely different. This was found in January 1953, which happens to be when I was born. And the academic that works in the university, he was given this, and what did he do? He contacted the government and showed them, look what I found. You know what the government did? They didn't go, they wrote back to him and said, it's a normal Homo sapien, nothing to see there. They didn't even come and look at it. They didn't even come to look at it. They just told him there's nothing to see there. And then he was told, I see you're working in a university. Who funds universities? You know why he gave it to us? Because he wouldn't have a job anymore. He gave it to me. Now, I want to tell you a story about this, and it's a true story now. And this is not quite factual, but it's true. As I'm driving towards this skull, it's in Victoria somewhere, and I get a phone call from Wirchin, one of my elders, Ramangeri elder. He says, you're going to pick up a skull today, are you? I said, Wirchin, this is Ramangeri country in South Australia, Kangaroo Island, 2,500 k's away. I said, mate, I don't need to check for you on that one. I've already got permission. He said, yeah, we've got some information for you. We've got 2 pieces of information about the skull you're going to pick up. He said to me, number 1, you know where it was found? I said, mate, I've got no idea. Somewhere in Australia. He said it was found in the Wimmera region. Does anyone know where that is? It's in Victoria, isn't it? It's a small region there. I said, oh, really? I said, well, I'm going to ask him that. Then he told me the second one. You do know how we've got a sky hero called Byami, and most of you people probably heard that name. He's the boss. By the way, we don't call him a god or a spirit, we call him a sky hero. And what my elder told me was when Byami came in the ship, he brought his children. That's his son, the son of Byami. I thought, you made 2 big claims here, mate. I'll be there in 10 minutes and I'm going to be asking him about the first one. So we pull up at this place. I swear to you, I'm not lying. He comes out of the door and he's holding this piece here. He said, see this? He said, we found this in the Wimmera region. So, is it the son of Byami? Chances are high it is, because how did he now come from the Wimmera region? I never told him I was going there. He should have known nothing about it. So, interesting story with that one. So can we run through this one very quickly, mate? Because we've got to keep on time there. Now, you'll notice they are similar. They have the same setup, but this is different. This one's different than the first one. Because the first one that I've shown you, this one, no suture. That one, first sight, 3 sutures. This time, guess what? None. This is older. The second one, buried with us in a tribal place, younger. This is older. This has got no sutures. You look on the back. This is a perfect model of the bones I've got at home. Okay, now, we need to explain to you now what the current situation with this, as we try and get this information out. This is the law. I've got the pieces of information from the government. When they sent me my official warning about a year ago, the warning said this: we have more than enough evidence to take you to jail and put you in jail for 3 years. And I've been told the ASIO agent said his job was to put me in jail and throw the key away, so I never got out. So I was going to be killed in jail. And they said, we can do this, but we've decided not to. Even though we've got plenty of evidence to put you in jail, we've decided not to. The next paragraph said, but we reserve the right to do so in the future, at any stage as we see fit. So, what happens with this is what happens. Legally, this is what I've been told I can do. If I take it outside the front door, I will be arrested. If I give it to a person who I've already shown it to, who is the top archaeologist in this country, who has the only portable OSL machine in Australia, and he's ready to go, and he's looked at it and said, it's not a Homo sapien. He's ready to go, and I said, but only a Homo sapiens come to Australia. He said, we've got that wrong. He can't do it. I'm not allowed to get it tested by anyone, and I'm not allowed to take it out the front door. If I do, I go to jail. So what they're trying to do at the moment is to cover it up. What I then tried to do was say, hang on, I know where this come from. And I contacted all the elders down there and said, I got your bones, I'll bring them back. I thought I'll get around this, I'll outthink him. And I said to him, look, we've got 38 bones, I want one from this one from this one, you can have the rest and bury them. And I told them, that's what we're doing. They said, we'll take over it now, National Parks and Wildlife take over it. About 2 months later, I got 2 replies from the 20 people. I know there were 20, and I know most of them were agreeing with me. The 2 I got were 2 lands councils next to one another. They both said this: it belongs to us only, we want it all back, and we won't be doing any science. I went back to National Parks and Wildlife and said, what about the other 18 people? I will not act until I get all their comments. That was said 2 years ago. Do you know what's happened since? Nothing. Nothing. So this is legit. Okay, can we go on to the next one, please, mate? We've got to get through this pretty quickly now. That is the... Oh, I've got to make a point. Old mate that did this, he put a bit of a forehead on the top, because this guy works for the Australian Museum and he puts skulls together. The guy that did this, has anyone ever seen 2 movies called Predator and Alien? Yeah. Oh, most have. He does all the faces. He gets, I've got to tell you, he gets paid a lot of money for it too. He gets paid heaps. We got to talk to him about it. And he couldn't help it. He had to put some of his creation on the top and give it more of a forehead. It doesn't have a forehead, but what that does give you, when you put that next to there, it solves the big mystery of this planet. And do you know what that mystery is? It's you. There's about 100 people here. None of you look the same. If I was to put 100 zebras together, and I just looked at their faces and took away their colours, how would you know which was which? What about Labradors? What do they look like? Labradors, right? Every animal on this planet looks similar, except one. Us. We can be 1/2 metre tall, we can be 2.5 metres tall. We can be 40 kilos, we can be 400 kilos. My fingerprints are mine, not yours, you don't have them. My retina pattern is mine alone. My heartbeat murmur is mine alone. There is nothing about humans that's similar. And yet we're told, I'm a teacher, I know what we're told, the monkeys made us. But look at the chimps. They all have the same height, the same weight, and they run at the same speed. We don't. We do nothing that's the same. But if this is mum and dad, you can do it. You can do it now. It works. Because this is so different from us. You mix it together and you get what we get now with some dogs. We mix 6 different breeds together and they become something different again. This is a creation. Okay, very quickly, we've got to get through them now if we can, please, mate. I'm hoping to go... Right, this is the second one. This one. Now, I thought this was a Denisovan. Does anyone know what a Denisovan is? Right. Denisovans there. By the way, when I went to school, there was Homo sapien and Neanderthal. Two groups, right? Do you know how many hominids we've got now? 17. 17. And here's an interesting one. Neanderthal, Homo sapien, red dragon man. Do you know where we rate of the 17 for intelligence, size of skull? 7th. And we call ourselves Homo sapien sapien. Do you know what sapien means? Wise. When people keep repeating themselves, walk away. If they keep saying, no, no, I'm wise, I'm wise, I'm wise, you know what that means? But one thing they aren't is wise. And I've looked around recently and I've watched what we're doing. I don't see it. This one I thought was a Denisovan because I'm 4.7% Denisovan. The Denisovans range from Asia through to Europe from 770,000 years ago to 12,000 years ago, but never went to Australia. And do you know who's got the highest link of Denisovan genes in them? Original people. From 2.5 up, you have to be original. I'm 4.7. I'm the 3rd highest Denisovan score in the world. So I'm 1/20th, not Homo sapien, which is a relief. I'm trying to claim the best parts of Denisovan for my genes, but I'm not so sure about that. But what I'm going to make the point is, it wasn't a Denisovan, and I was disappointed. Do you know what it is? It's an archaic Homo sapien, which has only ever been found in Africa. This is why they don't want this out, but I want you to watch something. Archaic Homo sapien. That's our ancestor. Watch this. This is the brain of us today. Who's got the bigger brain? This one. This is 1500 cc. This is 13. That's not on the list. That puts it down to 8th. This is not on the list because this has got 1800. This puts it down to 9th. We're in the bottom of the class, guys, for intelligence. I can tell you now, you may not know this, did you know that Neanderthal villages had hot running water 30,000 years ago? Proven. Didn't see that in the paper, did you? Never gets up there. Denisovans were making jewellery 70,000 years ago you women would be happy to wear today. Do you know what sapiens were doing then? Dribbling in the cave. Dribbling in the cave. So what, this is a story we're coming up to. Why are the sapiens differently and why did the aliens choose us? That's what this is leading up to. Next one, please, mate. Oh, there you go. There's a picture of 3 brains, and I'm not making it up. We're 3rd. But 4th here, 5th here, red dragon man. The new one they found in Israel, which is about 1600 cc, I've forgotten its name. They're all over the place. Their hominids turn up everywhere with bigger heads than us. And we keep saying we were smarter than them. We're not. That's not what the aliens were interested in. Not that. There's some of the bones I've got, and there's one other thing you need to understand. So this particular thing here, see on the inside, you'll see there's bits of markings here. That came off that. The inside and outside of this skull was covered in red ochre, which means it had to be buried, the brain had to rot away, and they took it back out and covered it. And they covered every bone in red ochre. Does that make him sacred? Absolutely. Top of the list. Of course he is, because he's our ancestor and we've gone backwards. What we've learnt from this is we are on a steady decline. Our brains are getting smaller. And if you don't believe that, turn on free-to-air TV.
Yeah, exactly. You're right.
And I watch the football and I don't go near it after that because it will kill me. It'll kill my brain. It's meant to do it, and they're encouraging it. And then they try and tell you. They try and tell you somehow or other you're something special. And there's the thickness of the skull. We've shown you that's the original one to make sure you understand it. Notice this strange effect there, the honeycombing. This guy that did this is brilliant. He's the best around. It took 6 months to do this and had to be the right temperature, right humidity when he worked on it every day. Old way. Next one, please, mate. Right. You've seen 2. There's the 3rd one. And see that skull there? How different is it to that one there? Nothing. Same. Where's that found? South Australia. Not New South Wales. Not Victoria. South Australia. In the desert. 2 days off we were. We arranged a team from Griffith University. Oh, they wouldn't let me go, and I was happy with that. I said, go and get it. Right? Griffith University were involved. The Cameliers, which is a group of vets that fight in the wars, they were going to take everyone out and look after us. And the day before, a top professor stepped in and said, you're not going to see that. It's still sitting out there now in the desert, getting washed away. They know it's there, and you can see that's exactly like the other two skulls I've shown you. And then there's one more, last one, because I think we've got to get through that one and the rings. Yeah, okay. That one, where was that found? Warrnambool, Victoria, on the coast. And look at that nose. There it is again, starting up here, completely different nose. And that one we think fell out of the cliff. We believe that they actually lived in cliffs and they've got long arms and stuff and they came out at night. And we do know from the Cherokee, they've got a story about the moon people. And when the Cherokee came to the land, the moon people were already farming it, but they only come out at night because they had big black eyes and the sun was too bright for them. And they had long arms. They talk about the same people. They were everywhere. They were living with us. Next one, please, mate. Oh, there's Leah's drawing of what this being looks like. Now, I want to close this. I've been factual all the way through, but every now and then I like to go to something a psychic told me, because I've got to make the point, and Shane knows this, when we go out in country, we always take what with us, mate? Psychic.
Dowsing rods
Hey?
sometimes. Yeah, dowsing rods.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that one uses the dowsing rods. We always do this sort of stuff, and that really enamors us with the archaeologists. They love it. Okay. This particular being, I've been told by two psychics and an elder the story of why it came here. Now, the story is this. I believe it's true, because I've spent a lot of time with this skull. Shane knows that. And it happened like this. We were told that around about 900, maybe a million years ago, 900,000 million years ago, these beings, and we'll talk more about them later because we know where they came from, were called to this planet. The trees were being cut down. Pollution, warfare, fear. The planet was falling apart. There's a strange echo effect working here. And what had happened was, the story I was told was the reptilians were trashing the place. They were trashing the place. And this mob were asked to come, not by the Homo sapiens, because we aren't that smart. A much smarter, more sensitive life form called them. And this is where it gets hard for some people, but maybe not for you guys. The trees. They called them. And they responded to the call from the trees. And when they got here, and Uncle Reuben Kelly talks about this. By the way, this is from what we say, that this ship came, it was made of crystal. It was made of energy and then turned into a crystal when it got to the earth, got to the actual top up there, and the reptilians shot it down. He survived and went down and landed there and started to talk to the reptilians and made sense. They started to listen and think what we're doing is wrong. Then somebody gave these beings up, gave them to the reptilians, and they killed him. And that's the story. They came a million years ago to clean this planet. Do you know why it's been found now? To complete its journey. It came a million years ago to clean the planet up. And we're going to be talking about this in the second half. I'm going to be talking about why the aliens came. They came for one day. And there might be a couple of people who went to Uluru when we went there 3 years ago. Is there anyone here that went to Uluru with us 3 years ago or not? No. Well, you're going to find out about that, aren't you? There was a ceremony held 3 years ago. That is why they came here. Because that's the beginning of the change. They thought it was going to happen earlier, but it didn't. So, okay, ladies and gentlemen, we move past them. And now we talk about Atlantis. Now, why are we doing Atlantis? Because that doesn't sound like it's about aliens. Yes, it does. It absolutely does. And I'll tell you why. Because Mesref have told us when the 3 rings from Atlantis were made, humans made it, they put the spell in. They put the magic in the rings. Now, I'm going to start this story by telling you something now. That's absolutely true. We know that's true. We do have the 3 rings from Atlantis, but under no conditions could I bring them today. One I've destroyed. The second one I agreed I was going to destroy anyone. And the third one that I fought for a long time. I think you even know I was fighting for it. Guess what? It misbehaved one time too many. I can't keep it anymore. I'm killing them all. I'm destroying all the Atlantean rings. Which is a shame, because those rings have pure orichalcum in them, which is a mythical metal that doesn't exist. I can tell you, when I started this basis and I started this journey, Roz rang me up and said, I bought a ring. And I've been doing rocks, skulls and stuff like that. And I said to Ros, great. And she said, it's a really amazing ring. I said, yeah, right, okay. Then she told me later, we do this thing where we put the ring on the table, we walk out of the kitchen, and when we come back, it's gone, and it comes back 3 days later. And by the way, it does that. I said, you know what I said? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, fine. And then after a while, she rang me up, and she said, the ring wants to come with you. I said, Ross, rocks, skulls. I don't do rings. I'm not interested in the ring. Oh, no, you've got to have it. All right, then. So she sends it to me. So what does the ring do? It sits on my cabinet for about 3 months. And I walk past it thinking, okay, ring. Found 1.5 metres beneath the surface, dug out by a prospector at Hill End, which, by the way, is on 33 degrees latitude. That happens a lot, this story. And he dug it out, and he told me, I've met him. He actually said, I bought a brand new metal detector, and I decided we'd celebrate. So that night we got drunk, and in the morning I woke up with a headache, so I decided I'd better turn the damn thing on and just make it work. So I walked up a hill where we knew there was no gold. Halfway up there, I got a reading. And he dug down 1.5 metres. That's about 40,000 years. And lo and behold, he found a ring. There it is. That's number one. What a piece of crap that is. Anyway, and by the way, Tolkien wrote the story, the Scandinavian myth about 3 rings. These are the 3 rings. I thought I destroyed the bad ring, but I didn't. That I thought was a bad ring, right? I thought that was a bad ring. It was used at one stage. Somebody stole the ring off them, didn't they? You were there. You saw it when it happened. These people attacked me, and this person was lying through their teeth, weren't they? They stole the ring off me, and then she tried to use it to kill me and Evan, and nearly did. I can tell you what happened to Evan, because Evan's not here because they got bitten by one tick, and he's got an allergy to ticks. On this occasion in June, in the middle of winter, we live in the rainforest up near Byron Bay, there were no ticks. He went to bed, and he woke up with 40 ticks on his body. He nearly died. I nearly got killed that night by that ring. And then a couple of days later, a lady went down to the person. Next time around, she would have killed both of us. She went down to this person. I think do you know who it is? Oh, you do. Yeah. And she said, I'm not leaving until I get it back. And she said, well, what are you going to do? I said, anything that's needed. Give it back to me. So she gave it back. She had actually been told by Ros, who bought the ring, to send it back. So she sent me a package, and in it, guess what was there? Nothing. She said it must have fallen out. And she was going to say, no, no. But then when that woman went down there and took it back off her, I'm glad she did. We would have been dead. Because she actually put up on, what was it, Facebook, didn't she? She actually put up on Facebook and told everyone, I'm going to kill Stephen and Evan on what day it was going to be. So we had elders, we rung up, we had everything ready, we did smoking, we had salt everywhere. I had all my rocks set up there. Nearly didn't work. That ring was so powerful. So, that particular ring, what makes me think it's from Atlantis? Number one, it's got 5 elements. 99.5% is copper and zinc. 0.5% is lead, nickel and iron, like drops, homeopathic drops. Now what happens is, and Tolkien was right, when you put the rings on your finger, which I've done way too often, way too many times, way past being redeemed, the green goes on there. That infuses a spell into you, and then it takes over. Now, this ring here has got 2 symbols on it. Can you see them? That symbol there is the Berber relief. You know the picture of Atlas holding the world on his shoulders? It was a punishment. He led an insurrection. He was the cause of the problems for Atlantis down the line. That's the symbol for Atlas, who was the son of Poseidon, the first son of Poseidon. The other one you've got up there is a circle with a straight line, a vertical line, straight line, vertical line above and below. But each of the circles is a different diameter. Did you know the inner circle, the inner temple of Atlantis is made of 5 circles of land and water, and they're decreasing each time. And there are straight and vertical roads that go across, which is what you're seeing there. There are 4 of those, 5 of those. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, I've got exactly the same. And by the way, if you want to go to Wikipedia, you'll find out Archaeological is a mythical metal that was found in the mythical continent of Atlantis. Then further down on the same page, I've got a picture of 56 bullions of Archaeological. And I've written quite often and said, how can it be mythical if on the same page you've got a picture of it? After I wrote that, Wikipedia took the picture off, but left the mythical part. So the Atlantean rings were always 99.5%. In fact, between number 1 and number 3, we've got some chemical readouts on all of them. You'll find they've got exactly 1.12% nickel. There is some fantastic chemistry going on here, and there's chemistry that's not even of this planet. We'll get to that. Okay, let's go through them now, mate. We've got to go fairly quickly. There he is, holding that up there. Punishment. He led an insurrection against Poseidon. He was a piece of rubbish. That was a punishment. You will carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, because when Atlantis fell, we're still wearing it. The Egyptians tried it again, it didn't work, and we're still wearing it today. That's why those 3 rings turned up. Next one, please, mate. Oh, yeah. There is the Archaeological in ingots. It was on a 6th century Roman galleon that sank near Sicily. But this is the crude Archaeological, not for the rings. Because that's 95%, and then 5% the other 3 elements. And Plato, Homer, they all told us what the elements were. And there is no ore like that. These are combinations. Now there is the breakdown of the Sicily ingots. Around 75%, 20%, 5% of those. 5 to 10%, that's roughly how it works. Next one, please, mate. Now, there is the breakdown of the one we've got, you've just seen. That adds up to about 9.5%. You've got the nickel at 1.2, like I told you before. The iron's shorter, and the lead's always higher with all these rings. It's the most variable part of it. Okay, thank you. So that's Archaeological, so that first ring is part of that. Do you know who that is? Howard Carter. And you do know the story about him walking into the tomb of Tutankhamun, and he walked out, and everyone else with him died, even his dog. We all know that, don't we? You don't know why it happened, do you? I do. Because, see that ring? He's wearing it. He wore it in there, and he wore it to the day he died. Do you know why he wore it? That's the original. That was found in 1861 in the in the Valley of the Kings by Marquis d'Agrain, who was a fantastic, well-known archaeologist. And he said this was the ring from Atlantis. From the ring from Atlantis. And he said, and his grandson did a book about it and wrote it and said it can protect you from every negative force that ever existed. Nothing can harm you while you wear it. He knew this. He went to France and met them, and they made him one. That's the copy. He didn't wear the original inside the tomb, but I've got to tell you about these rings. It's the markings on the ring and the way it's made that gives us its magic. So he wore that, and he was the only one that got into his 60s. Everyone else died. I found out about that, and I started to realise, what about these other rings? And I started to work out what they were. Next one, please, mate. Right. Yeah, okay, we know that part. You all knew that anyway. Next one again. Right, that's what it looks like. There's the 9 release for you. I've drawn them up. Okay? It's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. That's another point. You're down to 7, mate. You're going to be flat out getting a 5 at this rate. And I've got a 0.2 for something else I forgot. Okay, and here's the trick. It's been cut. See that line there? It was cut and joined back up again. Someone cut this ring. And we found that 2 of the 3 rings have been messed around with badly. Now that was buried 1.5 metres beneath the surface at Hill End. We're going back to Hill End for the last one. And this time we go down 4.5 metres. And there's another one there. Okay, that's number 2. Number 1, found at Hill End, New South Wales. Number 2, found in Scotland, in a churchyard. Do you know where they've taken these rings? To the furthest reaches of the planet away from Atlantis and buried them. All rings were buried. Because when Atlantis was blown up, I know for a fact that's what caused the rings. They started to taint people. They were made for good reasons, and then there's one magi that gave the ring to bad people. Then the ring started absorbing that, and they kept absorbing it, and they become incredibly evil. That's what took place. This one has just got the same relief again, male form, female form. I thought it had more redeeming features. Mind you, it got off to a really bad start. I brought the ring home. My wife and Evan both came up to me and whispered in my ear, "Can I put the ring on?" Now, we've had so much stuff in our house. Don't forget, my wife has already nearly killed herself touching this, right? And I looked at both of them and thought, what? I said, you've got to be joking. So I asked this ring from Lemuria. I asked it a question. Did the ring ask them? He said, yes. Would the ring kill them? Oh, definitely, straight away. Then I asked the other ring. I've got a crystal I can ask them. He said, yeah, I want to kill them. I said, but I'm looking after you. He said, yeah, I don't care. It just likes to kill. Actually, I've had a couple of psychics call it a trickster. It's got a sense of humour. So it'll kill you with a smile on its face. And it's done, I kept it for a while. Mesrev told me it was getting better, and it was. I was trying to clean one of them up. They're the most powerful rings on this planet. No alien will wear them. They're petrified from them. They just think they're just too dangerous. But I won't go into details because I don't have the time. But on 2 occasions, I gave the ring 24 hours to stop killing people, and if it didn't, I was going to cut it up and destroy it completely. On both occasions, I had people with blood pouring out of their ears, people about to die. It was killing everyone. And I stopped it the first time, and I said, if they're not all better in the morning, I'm killing you. In the morning, they're all better. Then I did it a second time. I stopped it again. I realised it's got one redeeming feature. It doesn't want to be killed. That's its moral fibre. It's got nothing left. And when I told Mesrev and Leah and others I'm getting rid of it, they clapped. They don't want to see it anymore. It is evil. Tolkien's story was correct, nearly. There are things he missed out. Okay, there's number 2. There's number 3. And it's got that symbol, it's got 5 of one, oh thank you, and 4 of the other. Just like the first one. But this is badly marked. But can you put on the next picture for 1 second, please, mate? Oh no, there should have been another one. No, it doesn't matter. We'll put that up anyway. There's a breakdown. There's your chemical breakdown of your Atlantean rings. You'll notice the first one is pure orichalcum. Now, notice lead on the next 2 is sacrificed. On the first one, it's sacrificed for gold. Now, why would they do that? Because that one is just for Atlas. Do you know why? Because the inner temple of Poseidon and Cleito is lined in orichalcum on the floors, orichalcum on the ceilings, and a gold cap on top. And there's a plinth with the wisdom of Atlas and Poseidon written on that plinth, and it runs up to the gold cap. So because this one belongs to Atlas, they took the lead out and placed that in. But notice the nearly the same. Now in the third one, notice it's nearly the same again with the lead. They took the lead out and put in nothing. Nobody can recognise it. This is the first of 3 of these I'm going to show you now. That is a non-earthly, it's only a small bit, but we need something better. That's coming up, don't worry, we've got more. Yeah, right, okay. That's Evan's sense of humour, because he was the one. See, the ring couldn't kill me, but it could kill Evan and everyone else around. So I was killing everyone, all the people around us trying to kill. But it can't kill me, so what it does in others. What's this? Oh, shit. Okay, we've got supernatural. We need these 2 people. No, they can't help us. I'm sorry, Dean, you can't help us at all. Okay, the ring. What does a ring do? You've seen the story about Gollum, about how he becomes obsessed with it. It does do that. And what it also does is, Gollum would have told you the ring talks to you. Well, it talks to me too. In fact, I've warned him so often. I did ask people, is it too late? And they said, way too late. I said, if I destroy it, will it make any difference? And they said, no. So what that means is, for me, every minute of the day, I have a constant voice in my head. And it will only say the very worst things about anyone I'm dealing with, about how I can use them, or something else. It's constant. And what you have to do is ignore it. And it's very difficult at the moment. And I think it's going to get harder as we go along. I've been told that, but that's a different story. Okay, no, we don't have Mount Doom here. Mind you, with the first ring, if we did, I would have thrown it there, but I've destroyed it. And I'm not going to tell you how I've destroyed it. I'm not going to tell you where it is, because I don't want anyone to get it again. I have cut it up into the tiniest little pieces, and I've buried it all over the place. You'll never find it, because it's just too evil. It's too bad. Okay, next one, please, mate. Right. Now, Atlantis. What do we learn about Atlantis? We're doing it again. It's rubbish. What we should have been doing, we should have never spoken about Atlantis again. We should have spoken only about Lemuria. Now, in the case of Lemuria, this is far more interesting. We've got 9 artifacts from Lemuria. And if you could put that up for me, please, mate. Okay. This one here and this one here. And you'll notice one thing about both of them. They're not made for me. And they're not made for you either. They're made for bigger fingers. These were both found by a Vietnam vet during when they were helping Cambodia by bombing it and destroying it completely. They went through the grounds of Angkor Wat looking for mines and found these. He sold these to a arts and crafts shop in Thailand. And I'll tell you how we got them soon when we get there. Quite a weird story. You guys can still hear me over there okay? Beautiful. I just want to check on that. Let's go past that, please, mate. And here is the reading of the first ring. Now, that is the elephant ring, which is mine. And there's the reading. And you'll notice it's about 87%. And then it's got a couple of variations. It's got the iron, it's got the copper, it's got the tin, but then we've got these two. The lead has gone up from about 0.1 to 0.2, and it's gone up to 8.7. Do you know what that does to the structural integrity of the ring? It messes it up. So what did the chemist, I'm saying now, what did he put in there? Titanium. Do you know what 24 karat gold is? About 0.9% titanium. Otherwise it would be too soft, it would mark all the time. Titanium is the greatest metal hardener on this planet. So what did the chemist do? When he put the lead in like that, he said, hang on for a sec, I've weakened it. We'll now add some titanium. When was titanium discovered? 1874. When was it first used in manufacturing? 1930 for 24 karat gold. That's when they started using it in the 1930s, just before the Second World War. But here, in this ring here, it's broken there, it's old. It was all black, I rubbed it off, and we found out that it looked very much like copper and zinc. Now, it's also got tin. Every ring from Lemuria has tin, bar one. That's the rule. This is different to Atlantis, and that makes it a different ring with different energy. I'm told what the energies of these are. The Lemurian rings only have positive energy. They are here to enlighten us. They are the best of Lemuria. Now, I do know for a fact that Atlantis was petrified of Lemuria and wouldn't go there because Lemurians had magic. They had powerful magic and they weren't going to touch them. They didn't go near them. Now, the interesting part of this story is, can you see that other ring up there? It's got the monkey, it's got the elephant, but it doesn't have the pig. Ros bought that one first. See the second one up there? That's my one. That's before it was rubbed, right? And when she bought this one, she was sitting down one night, Sunday night, feeling quite tired and run down, so she was watching a reality show. That was her excuse. I said, I didn't want my brain to work for an hour, so I watched a reality show. I can't argue with that. And then what happened was, while she was doing that, she had this ring in her finger, playing with it like I do all the time. I wear this constantly. And she said, the ring told me to turn off the TV. I said, well, I'd thank the ring if I was you. That's a good start to life. Then it told her to go to the computer. And then it told him to go to the computer and type in, now she's been to Vietnam vet stuff, she's been to archaeology, type in the name of a Thai arts and crafts store. Now, do you think Ros knew this name? She did not. She just wrote it in. And she said to the ring, because the ring was talking to her, and that might sound strange, but believe me, it's not. She said to the ring, well, what am I doing here? He said, type in giant's ring. She did, and guess what turned up? That. Now, how did she know that? She didn't. That ring did. And told her to go there. Now, what does that tell me about these rings? They've got powers here that we don't even begin to understand. And she was also told under no conditions could she touch it. It had to be sent straight to me. So she's never touched it or been near it, because this is for me, this ring. Okay, so we know that. Let's do the next one. Giant's ring number 2. That's what it looked like, ladies and gentlemen. It's only when I rubbed it, then we started analysing it. Okay, next one, please, mate. There it is again. Okay, we got through that. Oh, now the patina's off, that's right. Next one. Okay, there's the readout. Oh, that one. Lemurian ring number 3. We'll go through that quickly, please, mate, because that's a quite different one. Here's another one again with a crystal on it. Keep going through them, please, mate. And that one there, you'll notice it's got the iron, it's got the tin, it's got the copper, but it doesn't have other things because the crystal's the main function there, not the copper. So you'll notice the copper's not as strong. This one here was found in Australia, in Sydney, about 10 k's from here. I know where. And it's pure orichalcum again. There's its readout. It's got nickel, it's got iron, it's got zinc, it's got the tin, it's got the copper and the lead again. And the copper and zinc made about 97%. It varies with the Lemurian ones. They play around a lot more. And that one there. Now here's a readout of a couple more. There's all of the readouts, ladies and gentlemen, of the first group. And you'll notice I find that interesting. The repetition of that particular number. And it happens a lot. Now, you'll also notice the number 3. Chromium snuck in. Why? Well, the chromium snuck into that one because look at the amount of zinc in there. It's too high. It's weakened it again. Now, the greatest metal hardener is titanium. Do you know what comes second? Chromium. Who is this chemist? 10,000 years ago. How does he know this? But now, ladies and gentlemen, we need to go to the clanger. Next one, please, mate. That one. This is the ring that breaks every rule. Okay, there it is there. It's been broken 3 times. You drop this on the ground, it'll break. It's called the ring that David, Evan, and Dell broke. Evan's broken it, Dell's broken it, and David is Roz's husband. He broke it. And when he knocked it and broke it and smacked it, he didn't talk for 2 days. He was so upset. But look what happens when you break it. There's a metal piece inside. It's not joined to that. That green stuff on the top is separate to the cable inside it. Now this is where it gets weird, ladies and gentlemen. Chemistry, please. Check that out. Cadmium, ruthenium, rhodium, palladium, platinum. There's a lot of IUM words there, and this is at least 10,000 years old, but the clangers are these 2. Number 1, gallium. Who in this group here of about 100 people knows what gallium is?
Low melting point element. Low melting point metal.
Thank you. You have to melt metal to get it, don't you? It's a byproduct. Think about this. It's a byproduct. You've got to melt, I think it's steel or aluminium. Well done, mate. You're the first person who's ever said that knew it was melted. Excellent. So, it's a byproduct. And when you get a byproduct, you get 0.1, 0.2. You don't get 6.89. You don't put cadmium in there. Those are things used for electrolytes, for solar panels and stuff like that. They're very high, sophisticated things. And then there's the clanger. Add it up. You get into the 50s. There's 41.8%, it's not there. It doesn't exist on the periodic table. By the way, the machine we use, there's only 2 in Australia. They are a 6-figured machine and they measure to 2 decimal points. They are faultless. They can't find what 41.8% of this is. Do you know what Mesref said this is used for? When they sat on the throne in Lemuria, in the right hand, on this index finger, goes the ring of nature. On the left hand, on this index finger, goes the ring that gets you in contact with the aliens. This is the one that makes communication with the aliens. That's the purpose of it. That's what it was made for. So this particular one, 41.8, you will not find it on any periodic table because it doesn't exist here. All right, how am I going for time, mate? I'm trying to time this properly.
14:39, 2:39.
15 minutes left?
2:39.
2:39, great, okay. All right, I'm hoping that's it.
Next thing is an artifact.
I'm hoping the next one's another piece. Oh, good, okay. All right. Anyone in this room ever been to a place that you're now banned to go from? The rangers will kick you out if you go near it, called the Cosford Glyphs? Oh, there's a lot of people.
Yeah, we've been.
Have you been kicked out?
No, I'm just
They will now.
suppose you could get kicked
The rangers there now walking around all the time throwing people out. Now, let me tell you the story. Do you know why they're kicking people out? because of...
Where? I didn't hear.
Sorry?
Where?
Carry on, near Gosford.
Okay.
Up at Gosford, there's a set of glyphs there. I should have put the pictures up, but I don't think we did. It's got 300 hieroglyphs there. These three things were found here. We're not going to talk about the glyphs. We're going to talk what was found there, and they know what was found there. Number one, this was found by Arnie Minnie Mace, a very important elder. And she was with a guy called Jerry Bostock in about 1990. And she went to the glyphs and she found two pieces of dirt. They were covered in dirt, these two things. And the spirits told her to pick them up. She looked at them, clumps of dirt, why am I doing this? So what she did was she went home. She said it took me half an hour to get all the dirt off this. Same for this one. So, what happened? I showed this guy from Southern Cross Uni, his name is Graham Lancaster. He is the head of a laboratory that has 38 scientists. He goes around the world, he's a world expert. He said, I want to do this ring. I said, what are you going to do? He said, I've got to cut it. There's a cut just there. You'll see it when you come and have a look. He said, I need to cut it on the inside there because it's smooth on this side. And you can see the clasp that originally was there. Arnie Minnie Mace's daughter wore it to a doof and fell over and broke it. It's 5,000 years old, probably 10,000 years old. You really shouldn't take artefacts to doofs. Anyway, here's what happened. I asked Arnie Minnie, can they cut a bit away, which they have. She said, yeah, let's do it. So they did. And he came back and gave me the readout. And the readout breaks all the rules. It's 73% aluminium, 3% copper, and 24%. He said, I tried everything. I want to make this point. I tried everything. Could have been some sort of contamination, or maybe it's an alkaline. I tried to find out what the other 24%, he told me, we don't know what it is. But he did tell me this. That mark there was done by a diamond-tipped drill. They couldn't cut the aluminium until they used a diamond drill. Sorry? Oh, there is too. This mark, okay. This mark was made by a diamond-tipped drill. They could not cut it with any other drill they had because it was so hard. He said it's much harder than hardened steel, but it's aluminium. And he told me, if you could find what's in there and sell it, you'd be a billionaire. I told him, I know where it comes from. I said, it's part of what they use on spaceships, man. They're not going to give it to us. That's what this comes from. It's part of a spaceship, the 24%. It is used for ceremonies. This was found next to where there's an inscription that says Nefertari died here. I'm telling you that because he gave me one. Arnie Minnie Mace gave me this. Do you know what it is? It's a bone. Really light. Put your hand out, please. Is that light? Extremely light. Do you know what happens to bones as they age? They get lighter. I knew this bone could have been Nefertari's, but how could I prove it? So this is what we did. I rang up the Lismore Base Hospital. I said, I've got a bone here. I spoke to the fractures unit. He said, what are you talking about? I've got a bone. He said, is it alive? I said, no, man, it's way dead. He said, I do with living people. I said, but it could be 3,500 years old. It could be the son of Khufu. Oh. So I'll bring it in. So I did. Took it in. And he looked at it. He said, yeah, it's a femur bone. He said, look, it looks like it, it's a femur bone. But he said, look, I can tell you that, but I can't tell you more. He said, the only way we can do this is if we do a CAT scan. I said, oh, mate, at that stage, by the way, we don't get paid for any of this. We don't have money. We beg. I said, we don't have that money. He said, oh, don't worry about that. I'll get on the phone, I'll sort it out. So I go down there Monday, and the place is closed. The CAT scan unit is closed, and there's 6 guys there with all got the big white overcoats on, so they must be scientists or making shampoo. Either way, he said to me, he said, we're going to give this patient 6 times the normal dose because he won't complain. I said, fair enough, go for it. So they did. And then they sat around in a big group and talked about it for 15 minutes while I'm sitting over there wondering what the hell's going on. In the end, they gave me a microfiche thing that's now broken because this is going back a long time ago. And they said, well, we can only tell you 2 things. Number 1, it's got the same density as a human bone, and number 2, it's ancient. And it's found right next to, within 2 metres of the carry-on glyphs that talk about an Egyptian who died here. Now that happens to be, this particular device is used for ceremonies that only the highest can use. And Nefertari was supposed to be the next priest. He snuck onto the boat that came here and died here. So we've got two things here that tell me something. That's Egyptian, that's non-Egyptian. The third one, and this is why the place is closed down because they know about this, is that one. Now that, I'll hold it up now because I haven't had this one analysed, I don't have to. If you hold them up, you'll see they're exactly the same colour. I'm making this, you can have a look at them, but you can't take them, of course. It's exactly the same, right? The difference is, this one's got a crystal bed embedded inside it. When did we start doing that? Now this was found 50 metres on the other side of where this one was found, possibly, because I don't know anything about this, by a metal detector. It's possible. Because you're not allowed to take metal detectors on the national parks and wildlife, so I'm not sure about that. But the rumour is that a person who I don't know the name of, or maybe I forgot it, I can't remember now, I'm old, you forget these things all the time. He might have found it with a metal detector, but I can't be sure of that. But the point is, he went down a long way to get it, I'm told, because I wasn't there, I wouldn't know. It's the same. So why don't they want you to go there? Because there's more. There's this one, there's this one, there's this one here, and every one of them tells me something. These two told me one thing. This is non-earthly metals. These are non-earthly metals. So what we've got, ladies and gentlemen, and what we are going to do is, that gives me a little bit more time with the next one because I really did need, because we're going to talk about the next part. What I've tried to do in this first section, and we'll have a break in a sec, is I've tried to give you the part about if. Do they exist? Yes. How do we know? There. That'll do it. You don't need more than that. And I've got to tell you now, why have I got an ASIO agent? Why have I got the government threatening to put me in jail all the time? What have I done? I just found some objects. And they won't let me tell anyone. I've got the top scientists in the country ready, willing and able to do mitochondrial DNA on that. And you know what? If they do, you're not going to find much human in it. It's going to be completely different. There is nothing about this being that looks like us. Completely different. This is what's in Australia. Now, when we come back, yeah, I do have one picture of UFO, don't I? The least we could do is one of those. When we come back, I'm going to start by telling you the most important part of this story. And it's not if, it's why. And we know why they came. We know what the whole purpose of this game was. And if you've ever seen a show called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I'm going to give you a clue. It was close to fact. This was an experiment, a galactic experiment, to create something here that hadn't been created anywhere else. That's why they came. They've spent so much time, so much effort to come to a planet where what do we do most of the time? We kill each other. We squabble. We fight. We do all the things we shouldn't do. But deep down inside, I've learnt one thing. There was something about Homo sapiens that's unique, not just here, but everywhere in the cosmos. That's what we need to learn. Now, when we come back, over the next hour and a half, and maybe a bit longer, because I need a bit more time on the second part than the first, because that's more important. Most of you people are probably pretty well ticked off the if. I'm sure you have, or you wouldn't be here, I think. That's a fair call. But the why, you may not know. So we're going to have about a half-hour break. When we come back, I'm going to take you through the ceremony the original people have been guarding for the last 200 years. And it started 12 years ago at Uluru with one ceremony and culminated December the 21st, 2020, in the final ceremony that marks the beginning of a global change. I'm going to close with one last point. And this global change will mean that every animal, bar one, has an automatic ticket to ride. But one animal does not have that right. And that animal has to earn the right to stay here. And it's the one that caused all the grief. And do you know what it's called? Homo sapiens sapiens. So what we're going to try and do is, number one, tell you about what the aliens came for. Then number two, work out how in God's name can I become part of that. Because there is a change. There definitely is a change, but we'll talk about that later. Let's have a break for now. People who probably know most of what took place here. I'll go into a bit of detail with this, and I'm glad I had an extra couple of minutes to cover this way around. We got a phone call from an elder in Victoria who was in direct contact, had relations at Uluru, and I got this message from him. Now, I knew him quite well, and his old way. He spent a lot of time living in the bush and wouldn't take money from the government and lived a proper way. And he said to me something that I just, when he first said it, I thought, whoa, what's going on here? He said, there's a ceremony taking place at Uluru. And it's going to be on the summer solstice. It's going to be on the 21st of December 2020. And he told me this in about 2014. I said, what? What do you mean? He said, it's the big one. I said, well, I didn't know there was a little one. What's the big one about? He said, well, it's this. He said, they've been doing ceremonies. They've started already. And they're going to do it for 9 years. And then they're going to do that ceremony on that day. And he said, on that day, it's also the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. Remember 3 years ago when that took place? It's considered the most auspicious day in the solar system since forever. And people would say, oh, no, they aligned 184 years before, but they didn't do it on the summer solstice. The sun, the creation of light. This is different. This is the sun, Saturn and Jupiter working in conjunction with each other. And by the way, if you think it had no impact on our solar system, can I tell you a couple of things before we go into more detail? Did you know that straight after that, Mars's axis moved 6 inches? Now, 6 inches doesn't sound a lot. Pretty bloody heavy planet, but mate, to move it, you've got to do something deadly. And did you also know that straight after that, Neptune had 2 spots that appeared on the planet, and they're spinning the wrong way? That happened straight after again. Did you also know the largest earthquake we've ever experienced took place at that time too? And do you know where it was? Not Turkey, not Greek, Antarctica. It was 9.5 followed by 9.6. Do you realise you have a 9.6 in the city? Do you know what the city is? It's rubble. Now, most people don't know that, but what I'm trying to show you is just the conjunction of those 3 things affected everything in our solar system. But it was aimed for one place, here. This is what this is all about. So, what he told me this. He said, what's going to happen is on that day, the elders will go to Uluru and they'll sing up, and the word they used, and you know this word too, don't you, the magic box. That's what they used, they called it that. And it was placed at Uluru. And we told people about this, and we went around the world, and we had, I can tell you, between 15 to 20 million people were meditating on that day. That is the largest group meditation on this planet, aimed at one sacred site. That's the difference here. So he told me this. He said, the elders are going to sing up the box. He said, but that isn't enough. We don't deserve anything from that. He said, then we, as humans, have to supplement that. It's like turning the engine on, but it's in neutral. And if you want to drop it into first gear, you need a bit more energy. And they gave me a number. They were very specific. They told me a number that was needed to be involved in this ceremony. And when I heard the number, because I'm not allowed to say it, I thought to myself, well, if it's true, it doesn't matter. It's not going to happen. We're not going to get those numbers. I just couldn't envisage what was going to take place. And he told me this. If it doesn't take place, the earth will clean itself and everything will be damaged. You know that scene with the monk ringing the bell and the wave coming over the top? Multiply that by 10 and you're getting close to what was going to happen. And I know the original person that was the keeper of that story, because we weren't sure it was going to happen. And I know his name, and I met him, and I know what, and he told me the story. It's worse than any disaster movie you could think of. Everything gets smashed. And I said at the time, that's not fair. What have the birds done wrong? Nothing. There's only one being on this planet that's screwed up and won't play by nature's rules, and that's us. And I just felt that's just not right. So he told me this, and he said at the moment, he said that we, humans, have to earn the ticket to ride, and this is what this is all about. This is what the next hour and a half is about. And if we earn that ticket, we can stay here. If we don't, we will not. Now, how will that take place? I can tell you the mechanism now, and I'm sure some people in this room are aware of it. When the ceremony took place, and we're going to go through that in a sec, it'll be the Schumann resonance. Now, I don't know if you know this, the Schumann resonance, and most people are nodding their head in agreement, we already know this, since then has just gone off the planet. Sometimes for a day and a half you can't get a measurement. It's beyond the scope of what we measure. And Russians do it, the Ukrainians do it, they're still doing it. They've got a few other things to think of at the moment, but they still do it. They're still doing it now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what I was told was, if you aren't evolved enough, the Schumann resonance will sit in the thousands and you will perish because your soul cannot create and live and exist in such a high level frequency. It's a bit like this planet was kindergarten and it's now graduating to university, and we have to graduate with it. And if we don't, we're not welcome. Now what this guy told me in the finish, he said, well, I said, well, what happens then? What, are you talking about heaven and hell? He said, no, we're not talking about that. What he said is this. When I spoke to him at the time, I asked him, did the elders got an idea how many people are ready? He said, yeah, they do. You won't like it. 2%. I was a bit shocked by that. And I remember I had a discussion with him, because that's why I need a bit more time on this one. I said to him, what are you talking about? He said 2%. They think that's all that's ready. He said, nah, you got that wrong. And I said to him this, I said, look, I said, I get why we're sent here. We're sent here for two things. We're sent here, number one, to work out why. And if you don't do why, you failed. But there's another subject, and it's called love and magic, and they go together. You have to understand both to stay. And I said, look, I said at the start, I said this, I said, look, I know quite a few people, friends of mine, they're pretty straight. They're good people, but they love their kids. They look after their family. And yeah, they don't know what's going on, but that doesn't matter. And he said, yes, it does. He said, why do you think you incarnated on this planet? And I'm going to tell you more about this planet with Mesref. This planet is not like any other planet in the cosmos. Why did you get the worst planet on the cosmos for problems, but the best planet for improving your soul? This is the best planet anywhere because there are so many injustices. This is the only planet where a human could say you only live once. On every other planet, they know that isn't true. And see, that makes a difference. It makes a huge difference in your understanding of what you're here for. But they know that. We don't quite know that. We don't know anything. So here's the situation. He said, okay, so you said that, but I said, okay, fine. All right then, if they've got to do both, I'm going to bring it down to 10%, not 2%. Though I know people, about 10% of the population are asking why and are good people. And he said, are they? I said, yeah. He said, you don't think they could ever be pushed to do something angry under the right conditions if someone annoyed them? Would they get angry then? I said, I would, but not them. Then it started to dawn on me. In the end, I stayed with the 2%. Now, they've also told me, these elders have told me, the greatest blessing that's ever happened since then, and it's going to sound strange, but Mesref said the same thing, is that medical thing we're talking about. He said, because that made people think. It made them think wrong or right. It gave them a choice. It's a catalyst. Mesref said in one of the things we've written down there that that thing was the greatest gift we could give humans. Can you accept it for what it is? And he told me, we're not judging on whether you took or you didn't. We're judging on how you react to the group that did or didn't. We're looking at how you look at the ones who you don't like now because they didn't do what you wanted to do. We're judging you on that. This is one of the tests that you're receiving. He said, you've got to look at this right now. Look at humans at the moment. They're full of fear, angst, and concern. That's why it's here. You created this internally first. This is a manifestation of yourself. So he said, this is what we're looking at the moment. So ladies and gentlemen, what come out of that is we realised then that there was a large group of people who weren't ready. And we were told our job was to try and get a large amount of people to come to the ceremony. Now over that year, every presentation we gave without exception, and this is true, isn't it, Shane? Every time we said the same thing. Don't think it's going to happen. Not once did I say it is going to happen, because look, if I told you what we went through, we'd need a book, wouldn't we?
Almost.
Oh man, the stuff that was going on to make this fail is just unbelievable. But in the end, ladies and gentlemen, there were somewhere between 15 to 20 million people at 7:32 when Jupiter and Saturn finally hit alignment with the Sun. At 7:32, there were 15, probably 20 million people. That includes a doof that was taking place in Sweden with 90,000 people, where they stopped for half an hour. So the result of that was that we finally had humans working together for something worthwhile for that period of time. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take you through the story of Uluru, and you're going to see at the end of it absolute proof that Uluru did explode in energy at 7:36 because we filmed it. We've got the only film of it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through, and I'm going to take you through the ceremony at Uluru from the very beginning. No one was here, so you guys don't know what happened. We'll take you through it. Off you go, Shane. Right. I don't know why I haven't put that up. Oh God, yeah, he loves putting all this stuff up. Okay, we're going to get there eventually, aren't we? Next one. Ah, right, here we go. Okay, we're going to show you a lot of proof now. 7:36, I'll show you what happens to the people who were there. I was conducting a ceremony with about 350 people. Okay, and we were about 12 miles from the actual rock. Now that one there, that came from Croatia. And I think there's a gentleman I spoke to somewhere earlier from Croatia. I'm sure there is. There you are. Okay. Well, you like this one. Okay, this is for you. This is Croatia, and that was at 7:36, but not there because they're in a different time zone. And we got that. That was sent to us straight away, and we put it up on the last day of the conference. Thousands of people saw this. It was in the news in Serbia, in about 4 other neighbouring areas, but not in Croatia. They didn't put it up in the news. But everyone was talking about it on Facebook. Everyone saw it. It's a disc with massive light coming down or going down into the sea or coming up from the sea. Now I want to make a point. The Hopi, the great prophesizers of the future, talk about the blue Kachinas and when they come. They talk about the blue Kachinas will show themselves in the northern and southern hemisphere, and they will be blue. And by the way, we're going to show you that in a sec too. And then they said, look to the sky for the signs. Look to the sky. And that's what we're doing. Next one, please, Shane. We actually literally have hundreds like this. We won't be showing them all. Okay, there's the Schumann resonance. You guys know about that, so I'm not going to do a talk on that one. Go to the next one. And that one, because we know that's still the Schumann resonance. Okay, here we are. This is after the sun is set. And here we are at Uluru. And what we're doing is there's some lights in there and all the rocks are inside. I took about 80 there. And we had about 350 people sitting around the outside of the rocks. And at 7:32, we did 20 minutes of meditation. But this is before the meditation. This is actually just after the meditation. Now the sun is set. But that is the important part of the equation. Because when the sun is set, you don't get a deep blue in the sky above because it's not there. And this cloud, which went from Katajuka to Uluru, it joined the two together, and that's the only place the cloud was. You'll see it later. It just sits over those. And if you don't know Katajuka and Uluru, they're the men's and women's site. They both got it at the same time. So there's the sky, and what's happened is everyone's just looking at the sky. There's a security guard there. Does that happen often? She said, never. Never seen anything like that before. So there's a little hint. We've got the blue up there, and I knew about the prophecy of the blue Kachinas. Next one, please, mate. Right. Ah, there we go. Uluru, Katajuka. Next one, please, mate. Right. Now, there is the sky 10 minutes before. And when I was setting the rocks up, it rained on me. I'm thinking, oh, what are the chances of raining on me at Uluru in the middle of summer? Come on, that's not going to happen. And I thought that cloud was a deeper grey than that. I thought that one up there was going to rain on us. But after we did the meditation and opened our eyes, it turned into this. Okay, the next one. Right, now we get the interesting part. What have we got here? We've got the blue up here in Georgia, USA, at exactly the same time. The Hoppy said there would be one of the blue Katrinas in the southern hemisphere and one in the northern hemisphere. There they are. They're both there. Another piece of circumstantial evidence, but we've got a lot more. Next one, please, mate. Keep going. We're going to play this twice for you. It's a 1.5 second video. By the way, these people were not at our ceremony. And they were just filming the rock. It's 7:37. And what they did was they filmed it. And I can tell you now, they never saw it until they went home 2 days later. And then they sent it to us. We'll play it twice. Play it again for me, please, mate. Did you see that flash? That was seen around the world. We had people who reported that on the other side of the hemisphere. It went everywhere. But did you notice the flash did not go into the rock? It went out of the rock, and that was 7:37. At that stage, we've got somewhere between 15 to 20 million people focusing on that magic box. And by the way, I better tell you something now. There was no magic box there. It was a set of crystals that were put there by the Pleiadians way back. But if you told everyone we want you to meditate on a rock, tell them it's a magic box, it works better. I know why they did that. It does work better. But there were crystals placed inside there, and at 7:36 those crystals energized the planet. From that point on, the planet has been healing itself. And the reason why this didn't happen straight away is we're trying to get used to this change. And you look around the world today and everyone's on edge. They are on edge. This is creating it. People are constantly on edge. And look around what's happening everywhere. Fear is running rampant on this place at the moment. And by the way, those in control know about this. Do you know that when they made the announcement the Pentagon were going to examine the possibility of UFOs for the first time? Do you know that was 7 hours after that flash? Did you know that? 7 hours later. You go and check. It was on the next day. On the 22nd of December, they made the announcement. They were not going to make that announcement unless that flash happened. They know it's on. This is part of the change. Next one, please, mate. Right. This is in Newcastle. Another shaft of light running up there again. Keep going, please, mate. We've got so many of them. Okay, again, another one coming out of there. Now we'll get to some others. I'm hoping we're going... Oh, yeah, this one. This is in Hungary at the same time. And the place has just got lights coming out everywhere. Look, we're only going to show you half of them because we'd be here for hours. There have been so many of these that have turned up. That one's quite interesting because that did get in the paper. That one got in the paper, and look what they called it. That's a quote from the headline. It wasn't something like the War of the Worlds. It was the War of the World, this world. It was beginning the cleansing process and saying, humans, join me. And if you don't, get out of my way. Some of those lights are coming down in front of that building. They're everywhere. We've got dozens of these that happened all over. And the Hoppy told us, look to the skies. This is what we're doing. Next one, please, mate. Oh, yeah. Bird sign. I don't know if that's a video or not. Is it? No. No. Okay, keep going. Oh, that was a bird sign. That's right. Now we're going to the meditation. Okay. When I fixed the rocks up and put them in formation, those two birds swung around me 3 times above the rocks straight away, which told me then, because that's always the case, isn't it, mate? No bird sign, we don't like it, do we? When we go on country, we want bird sign and we want me what? Bleeding. Yep.
Are they vegetables?
No, they were cockies.
Oh.
They were cockies. They flew around 3 times, magic number. And when they did that, I knew that I had the right formation. It was ready. So next one, please. And there we are now. Shane was there on the day. And there's Pat. No, that's not you. Hey? Oh, that is you. Oh, there you go. Shane up there. Right, 300 people. We're all sitting down. And what I'm doing is I'm putting charcoal across each of them from the last ceremony Kano ever did. I had the charcoal was given to me from his mumui, which is a ceremony he did with fire. Next one, please, mate. And now it gets interesting. This is what I found probably the most interesting part of the story. It's got darker now. Can you see that? And what happened was, inside there are the rocks, aren't they, Shane? This was spontaneous. No one arranged it. It just happened. No one was allowed to go inside, were they? That was the rule. Anyway, we finished the 20 minutes and I started to pack the rocks up. And Shane was with me. And there was a couple of them. I was wrapping them neatly, each one, and panning them on one. At one stage I was, wasn't I? Then I looked up, and inside the circle, there's about 20 people all holding arms and dancing around the circle like you would in an Indian powwow. You know, you go around there and they were just singing and chanting. I thought, where'd that come from? Because no one called it up and said it, did they? It just happened. And that was okay. We thought, yeah, that's all right. They're over there. We're here. And I started packing again, and I looked up again. Instead of that mob there, it was about 100. And now we're not packing. I'm just throwing the rocks across here because the groups are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and just chucking the rocks across here. And they're going everywhere. The rocks, I'm trying to wrap them and throw them at the same time. And I think that was the time where you were allowed to touch them, wasn't it? Yeah. And you're trying to wrap them too. And these guys are catching up everywhere. And in the end, there's about 200 people there. And they did it for about, what, half an hour? Non-stop. Do you know what did it? The vibration. What happened? My son, Evan, will tell you, he was there, and quite a few people did the same thing. I saw quite a few people putting their hands up like that, because when they put it on the ground, they could feel the ground vibrating. When people touched them, they could feel it too. The ground was absolutely throbbing, because you've got to remember, this was the closest ceremony to the one at Uluru. So it was running through there. And we know that because some other things happened, didn't they?
Remember as soon as we started, the wind came up all around us?
Yes.
And the birds all went into the trees and all started carrying on?
Yeah, they did. Everything started to explode from that point on. And I remember thinking at the time when this is happening, yeah, I know it happened, but how am I going to prove to people? How am I going to prove to people? Because everyone was telling me, oh, the aliens are going to come. And I said, I hope not, because it makes it too easy. It's too easy for them. If they land in bloody and the lawn of Washington, everyone's going to see it and say, oh yeah, it's okay. Oh, now I want to be part of that group. And you guys have done it without that. They will not do that until this change has taken place. They don't want to make it easy for us because it shouldn't be. Okay, so now we've got the end of the ceremony. Now we get to the part where we're finally going to show you a UFO. Because at the same stage, but I've got to make a couple of points about this particular film. It goes for 1 minute 30 seconds. It's taken by a gentleman who is legally considered blind. Now, he got out of the car to film the clouds. He didn't see it. He's got one eye that doesn't work at all and the other eye that barely works, okay? He got out of the car and he filmed this particular event. Now, halfway through this film, you're going to see a person standing at the car park there and holding up her mobile. Uluru's over there. What he filmed, and you'll see it twice, is a UFO. You'll see it at the start, and Cosmic Consciousness Group have put music next to it, so don't worry about that so much. Hit it for me now, please, Shane. We'll go for the next minute and a half.
There's more pictures here first.
Oh.
There you go.
Go. Oh, it's a bit hard here.
Yeah.
Oh, you can still see it just. Still there. There it is there. There's the blue patch, and that's where it's going towards. Now you can't see the UFO now, but it's still there. Okay, you probably saw it, it's not, I mean, it's probably the worst UFO clip you've ever seen. No, I don't want to talk, he's just put it up there. Now, let me tell you, we did some research on this. What did they say it's going to be? It's a plane. No, we checked. The last plane that took off between Darwin and anywhere, which was Adelaide, was a Jetstar plane. It was 400 kilometres to the west. It's not that. Then someone said it's a helicopter. No, the person who took this film was in the helicopter that landed at 4:30. They don't fly after then. Number 3, it's against the law to fly above Uluru. The thing was above Uluru. So this is what it's not. It's not a helicopter. It's not a plane. What is it? The clue is simple. If you take that film and you go to 59 seconds and 60 seconds, that's where it becomes obvious what it is. Because on 59 and 60 seconds, one of the people who saw this slowed the film down. They had a machine to do it. And there's 4 frames in every second. And on the 59th second and on the 60th second on the 4th frame, the UFO reappears for one of the 4 frames in 59 and 60 seconds. Then after it's gone completely. There is no machine on this planet we can make that can disappear for 3 frames and reappear for 1. I don't know if we've got that might be the film of those two pics. I'm not sure. We have got it, but. So what that told me straight away is whatever that object is, it's not a plane, it's not swamp gas, it's not a bird, and it's not a helicopter. And it's here at 7:36.
Chinese lantern.
Obviously you've heard, it's a constant battle, but this is the reason we're putting this up is simply because it's put up by a blind person who didn't know it was there. And look at the speed it's moving at. No plane can move at that speed, it'll fall out of the ground. It'll just fall out of the air, it's not moving quick enough. It's basically moving at about 30 to 40. And the other part is, you've got to remember, there were 350 of us sitting in the desert, weren't we? You reckon we can't hear a damn helicopter was there? Come on. We were all sitting meditating quietly. Not one of us heard a thing because there was nothing to hear. There were quite a few elders who told us there were elders standing all around us, didn't they? Everyone's saying, I can see spirits standing everywhere.
Maybe he was guided to take that photo by...
That's a very good call, mate. Yeah, yeah. Because what you don't know is they were visited the night before, these people. And they've put that in their article, haven't they, Shane? They were visited the night before. They were chosen, both of them. So yeah, we know Sarah quite well. Sarah was one of the people who was bleeding through the ear. When the rings were playing up, they tried to kill her, and she was in Perth. Anyway, moving past that one, please, mate. There's the map of all the flights. Here we are over here, and there's the flight up there at that time, Jetstar. And the time there is 7:32, covered. It's not a plane. That's all there is. There it is. Yeah, there it is there. There's the blue. There's the blue up there. That's the picture at 59 seconds. That's the picture at 1 minute. But if you watch it, you won't see anything. You won't see a thing. If you go back and look at that, and I've done it, you don't see it. 1/4 of a second flash and you don't pick it up quick enough. But it's up there. She's got both of them there, but there's nothing else there. So what sort of object is that? There's nothing there's nothing we've got. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't a helicopter. It was a UFO. And Mesrith told us they went there to see if it was going to happen. Oh yeah, that's the other one. We got told that. Some people said it's drug runners. Let me tell you something. If it's a drug runner and you're landing around Uluru, number 1, all settlements were what? Locked up.
It was all locked up, yeah.
Complete lock-up. No one in, no one out. Everyone was petrified at the time. So the drug runners are going to go to Uluru. And of course, as you know, blackfellas out in the bush there, they've got plenty of money. They wallow in it.
Remember the police were on their way too,
Hey?
The police were on their way too.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to what they did to try and destroy this. Because both the police, the Australian government, and an international company tried to destroy this. I'm going to do that at the end, but I'm glad you brought it up because I had forgotten about it until now. You get back 1 point. You're back on the chance, mate. Now, let me explain what happened there. This is what happened. On the 20th, we did a presentation at Uluru. We were asked to talk there anyway. We were going to go there anyway because we were asked to take the rocks there. We did a presentation at Uluru, and at the end of that presentation, I got a phone call. I got a phone call from someone. And basically it told us that the time we'd been given was a lie. Didn't they? I've been given the wrong time, deliberately. That's what I said about people trying to change this. So we spent the whole afternoon contacting people all around the world, didn't we, to tell them the time was wrong. This is how much they tried to destroy this. If everyone started meditating at 8 o'clock, which is what I was told, the solstice is over. And it wouldn't have worked. So this was going on all the time. So, what did the government do? Okay. At about, it was in the afternoon, wasn't it? Yeah. It's on the next day. The head of Uluru comes into the conference and says, I need to read this out. It's been sanctioned by the Northern Territory Government and Jetstar. Now, the Northern Territory Government are beholding to who? The Australian Government, because they're a territory, not a state. Jetstar is beholding to who? Qantas. And this is what they told us. They said, everyone here, including this bloke over here, who is from Sydney, will be quarantined. Now, they had, a week before, quarantined the northern shore, the northern beaches of Sydney, didn't they? And nobody came from there. So we had people that weren't from, and that's the only place in Australia. They said northern beaches, northern beaches, northern beaches.
A film company lived in that area, and they obviously had the names of the people who were going to film there.
Yeah.
The running the conference. Half their team couldn't come.
Well, what we've got now is an interesting situation, because what they told us was this. The police were coming, about 40 or 50, wasn't it? They were coming tomorrow, and everyone from Sydney is locked up. That means Shane, he's locked up. He comes from, where do you come from, mate?
Guildford.
Guildford, that's right on the northern beaches near Manly. Had to be. Right, so what happens is this. What happens is this. They're told, go to your room. You've been a naughty boy and girl. You can't come out. Now, they won't feed him that night. I went to a takeaway restaurant and they said, if you're from Sydney, ring in, we'll send it and leave it at your door and knock and run away. And in the morning, it got worse, didn't it? In the morning, the police were coming en masse and they were all going to get tested. All going to get tested. I'm not making this up, it's all true. Okay. And this time, everyone's got together and they're all talking about how they're going to fight it. They're going to get a legal team. I'm saying to them, legal team against the government. Good luck, guys. Yeah, right. This is the team. You're fighting against another group that writes the rules and pays the referee, and you think you're going to win. They had no chance. A woman come up to me and said, what am I going to do? I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old kid. I've never left them before. I've come for this. And what they told them was this. You know what the story was, wasn't it? You had, then Jetstar popped in and said, we're going to send an empty plane up, didn't they? Empty. From Sydney to Uluru in the morning at 8 o'clock, and you get on that plane. And if you don't, you self-isolate at Uluru for 2 weeks at Uluru, which is only $800 a night. That's all. Not much. 800, that's a lot, believe me. I shouted them a meal last night, a takeaway. It's just a takeaway Bay Marie, wasn't it? For 6 people. It cost me over $500. It's ridiculous. So, here we are. She said to me, what am I going to do? She said, because that's Christmas gone with my kids. I said, get on the plane. I said, get on the plane. I mean, that's her 2 kids. Yeah. There's no option. And about 50 people got on the plane, but the rest didn't. And then, Shane, in the morning, where did you have breakfast?
Straight at Salmon's, where we had the
He went back to the same place he couldn't go the night before and sat down there for breakfast. No one said a word. Then all of a sudden, we find out the 50 police turned into 2 police who came with a van and did this. And then 4 people came out to them once. 4 people who had a cold, and they said, oh, we might have COVID, can we be tested? Oh yeah, right, okay, and they tested them, they didn't have it. That was it. And then it gets better. At 9 o'clock, there's a notice that goes up at Uluru. All flights to Uluru have now been resumed. Normal procedures as before. Now, you know why they were doing that? They were trying to destroy that ceremony. Now, this is not a make-believe story. I've got 400 witnesses who'll back me up. We went through all of that. Nobody came. 2 police came and sat there. They didn't go to his door. He went to the place he couldn't go the night before. They wouldn't even let him walk near it. He was locked up.
They did actually ring our unit.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course, because you were unwashed. Yeah. All the lepers in one corner, lock them up and we won't see them anymore. Now, what that tells you is that when I say to you that the 9 hours after this happened, the Pentagon announces we're going to investigate UFOs, not a coincidence. All of the stuff I spoke about, that's the Northern Territory Government, and that guy read it out, and it was stamped by them, and that's stamped by the Australian government. And who's Jetstar work for? So they managed to collude the government and a large business to come to this little ceremony we're doing and try and block it. Now, why would you go to that much trouble? What are you trying to gain from that? I'll tell you what they're trying to gain, and they're still doing to this day. They're trying to make people fearful. This world is full of fear and terror. And if it's full of fear and terror, there's a beautiful line from June. It said, fear is the mind killer. When you're fearful, you don't think, you react. And your brain becomes a spectator. And that is what they're doing. Everything they do from that point on, I believe from that point on, the world over the last 3 years has got appalling.
Yes.
It has got worse and worse and worse every day. And there's not a person on this planet that doesn't feel that fear. And that's what this is all about. Yes, mate?
I'm wondering whether you were upsetting people at Pine Gap.
I've upset a lot of people, mate.
That base and,
Yeah. Well, the point being that, yeah, we've upset a lot of people because of the fact that what we're trying to say is that mainstream are hanging on to a dying regime that's falling apart, and it's done. Now, I can tell you the aliens know this is done. We're going to be reading from Mesmer's book later on, and we're going to be talking about that. I did some questions with him. He'll give you more information on that. What we're down to now is over these 3 years, and I believe, I've spoken to Mesref and quite a few elders recently, we are talking not a decade from now. I don't believe it's a decade. I believe it's shorter. I'm not going to give a date because I don't have one. I can tell you what the Hopi have said, and I want to make the point. You want to know who the keepers of the great prophecies are? It's them. They said there will be a cloud, a rainbow-coloured cloud that will come towards you. And if you are staying, you will look away, and when you look back, they will be gone. Now, that prophecy is also found in Corinthians in the Bible. Did you know that? Have you heard the one, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth? Yes. Do you know the bit that came before it? It's about the ones who were inheriting before. And what it said there was, you shall look at them, and they will be there. And when you look away and look back, they will be gone. That's in Corinthians, by the way. It's in the Bible. It's in all the indigenous prophecies, be it the Mayans, be it the Hopi, be it the Cherokee, the Inuit, it doesn't matter. They will all tell you there is a change beginning, and it begins, and this is the important part, in Australia. That's where it begins, and that's what this is about. And no, it wasn't a drug runner. I mean, for God's sake, why would you run drugs in the poorest part of Australia and expect to get... And you can't. Where are they going to land the plane? It can't happen. It's just not on. That was an alien. That was an alien spaceship that came, and they came to see and celebrate. And in the first reading we've got there, Mesref will tell you about a warning. Yes, you succeeded. But then he chucked in a proviso, as he always does. Righto, where are we up to now? Oh, that's right. Okay, thank you, Evan.
More skies.
Oh, we've got more of the skies. Okay, just run through them now, because you know basically what you're looking at. Sweden, I didn't know Evan put more in. There are so many of them, ladies and gentlemen, and they never get recorded. I can tell you, oh, that one's pretty deadly. Has that got a film that goes with it? No, it might be another one coming up. The Hopi said, beware of the red eye in the sky, because that will be the signal of the last days to come. That's legit. That's not Photoshop. I've seen that quite a few times. It was done in Spain. And I'm going to tell you, if you saw that in the air up there, you'd say, what's that? It ain't normal. I've heard some of the explanations for this they've put up, and some are so ridiculous I can't even believe they said it. But they do. Keep going, mate. Yes, another one. Keep going. In Russia, another one again. We'll keep going. We'll get through them. And more. Right, okay, and I think we're nearly finished there. Oh, the earth shakes, yeah. We better do that. You know about that one? That's recent. That was the beginning of the final movement of the earth. Do you know what happened there? This was an earth shake that took place. It's not called an earthquake. It was measured all over the world. From deep within, there was this massive vibration that took place that we never felt, but everything underneath felt completely. It was huge. Look at the markings there. This is from New Zealand, Puerto Rico, Brazil. Keep going up, please, mate. There's more, I think. Yeah, Turkey, Japan, Thailand. Keep going. I don't know what that one is. Massachusetts, I think. Yeah, Kenya, Mexico, all over the world. At that stage, that was the stage where the Earth was really beginning to change. Next one, please, mate. And I think we're nearly out of that one. Yeah, there's the Schumann resonance, 9-year blackout. That I know about. Right, and next up, right. Oh, that one. That's a film. Can you put that up for me, please, mate?
Yo, what the fuck is this? Oh my god. I feel like that bird box shit. That movie. No, they're landing on my car. I didn't clean it away.
What's that about? Auntie Minnie Mace. I asked Auntie Minnie Mace, I said, what will be the final sign? She said, the birds.
Yo, what the?
Well, the birds. The birds will be the final sign. She said, when the birds start acting crazily, it's because everything's out of sync. They're losing their internal compass. What you're looking at there, and by the way, there are so many of these. I don't know if Evan's got another one there. I've got another one where there's about 10,000 birds flying somewhere. I think it's in Mexico. And all of a sudden, all 10,000 of them just fly straight into the street, the concrete, and they smash into it. Thousands died. You know what they said it was? Hawk chased them. 10,000 birds, and they panicked. They flew into the street. That way the hawk wouldn't get them. That was the explanation. Now, this is happening all over the world. This is part of this change we're talking about. And I'm pretty sure, oh, that one. Is that a film? Yeah, it is. No, it's not photoshopped. Because those people were saying, well, I can't speak Russian, but I'm pretty sure I know what they were saying. These are the sort of things that aren't normal. The Hopi told us what we're supposed to look for. What they're doing for us right now is giving us every possible sign we can get. And what we've got to try and do is take this in and work out what it means. What I'm going to say to you people is if you want other people, we've got this up on our website for free. This particular article with all this stuff up there. Yeah, okay, we'll leave the Russians, they're getting pretty upset. Okay, next one please, mate, because I've got 2 more things to go, yeah? Oh, good. Right. Okay. Enough negatives. Let's do a positive now. Now, I don't have any more of the Slater books. I could only bring a certain amount because my son was crook and we could only bring one bag. And if you want some, let me know and we can send them down to you. Give us your name and we can send it and then you can fix this up as we go along. Why Slater's so important? I believe he's the best, the greatest archaeologist that ever existed on this planet. And I'll tell you why very briefly. Very important man. Now, first of all, I can tell you that mainstream have said that he's one of the most ridiculous men that's ever existed in Australia. He's a load of rubbish and he lies. That's what they've said. My son, at one stage at the Courier Mail, is anyone familiar with the Courier Mail? Wonderful newspaper, high standard of integrity, rang us up and said, we want to do a Sunday 5,000 word feature on your work. I thought, yeah, right, okay, fine, we'll see about that. Anyway, we hummed and ahed and said, no, he swore to me, man. He swore to me, no, I'm not like them. This is the Sunday paper. I do the feature. No one can tell me what to put in there. Eventually, we agreed. They came down to Byron, took pictures of us with the rocks, wrote all the stuff down, said, we're going to do a great story for you. And of course they didn't. They went and found Dennis and some others and they wrote different stuff and put out other stuff to say, we're rubbish. So Courier Mail put up the article and they put up a picture of Frederick Slater. That's not him. That's not Frederick Slater. Nothing like him. But they said he was a wild old madman. Fits perfect, doesn't it? That's Frederick Slater. He looks like a principal of school. He doesn't look anything like the other bloke. Now, the Courier Mail told us that Frederick Slater is an idiot, he's nobody, and they got one of his family. By the way, he died in 1947, and the person who was his family was his, it could have been his son. He was 3 when he died, and he said, nothing Slater said or did amounted to anything. I will give no credit to anything he's ever said or done. He's a load of rubbish. So mainstream today have said that Slater is a fool and an idiot. There's only one problem. Do you know what they've never used in their critiques? Inverted commas. They have not quoted from one word of his work. So I want to make a point to you now, ladies and gentlemen. If we ignore every scientist who's a social misfit or doesn't fit in, and we ignore everything they do, you know what we're left with? Bugger all. Most scientists are autistic, savant. That's part of the deal, for God's sake. And they're saying, because his character's not good enough, we will not recognise his work. But they don't know what his work is. They don't know what his work is. So this begins the story. Now, how did this story start? It happened when a gentleman by the name of Richard Patterson said he walked into a Richmond River Historical Society, went into the back room and found this cupboard and opened up an unmarked box. And in it were 18 letters written by Frederick Slater to Frederick Fordham. Now, Frederick Fordham was the principal of Brunswick River Primary School in 1938. That is a high-level job then. That's up there with doctors and teachers, right? And he's spending a year out in the country working for this guy here and sending information about the Standing Stone site, which we'll look at very briefly. So, the problem is this. We don't know. Well, I do, because he wrote a book called Scribes of the Stone Age. And in it, he made the most outrageous claims. He said that the height of civilization was with the original people hundreds of thousands of years ago. And we've been going downhill ever since. That aliens were here. He was reading all this information. Now, the big question here is, how did he get this information? And I think that's up there, if I'm not mistaken, I'm hoping. Hit it? Oh, that's Mesrith, but he shouldn't be there. Skip him. Is that it?
That's pretty much it.
Oh, man. Come on, Evan. Okay. Where was I?
Let's talk about your new book.
Right, okay. Right. What happened was this. She was there, and we've got a picture of her. A lady by the name of Eliza Hamilton Dunlop, in 1830, went to a place called the Wallamai. And her husband, David Dunlop, was a magistrate. And they were the first white people to move into that area. And they met the blackfellas. And they tolerated David Dunlop, but they loved Eliza Dunlop. She wrote translations of Aboriginal songs, Aboriginal poems, Aboriginal everything. Mile Creek, who fought against the releasing of the 7 people killed at Mile Creek and lobbied the British government to put him in jail? She did. She was standing by blackfellas all the way through. And what happened was, the blackfellas there, particularly one from the Wallamai mob, decided we have a first language. We've got a language that no one knows about, and I'm going to give you how to read it. And he sat down with her, and she wrote up called the Great Record Book. And in it is how to interpret all of the original carvings in Australia. In the paper, we have over 100 clippings with the name Frederick Slater in there. Over 100. It talks about the fact he went to Maruta, which is down the south coast a bit, and he went to a site that they've been trying to read for 25 years, and in 10 minutes, with his manual, he read the whole thing and left them. And in every newspaper I've read, no one questions that Slater had this book. Now, the language is called Murri Wagalda. It's a special language. It's called soul language or spirit language. And it's completely different to all other languages that have ever been spoken. And the story is, and if you want to go to the Bible, and I will, before the Tower of Babel, how many languages did we speak? 1. And this is the language. This is what he's found. Now, moving on to the other, we don't go on to the next one, do we? Right. So, let's look at Slater. Who is this idiot? Well, in 1898, he was the editor and chief correspondent for the Charters Towers newspaper. Then he went to Gladstone, and he was the editor and the chief correspondent there. Then he went to Dubbo and did it again, both. Then he went to Newcastle, and I've got a plaque. I'll tell you about that plaque in a sec. And there, he took the Newcastle Herald and doubled its readership in 3 years. What an idiot. And then he was hired to write for the Daily Mirror the Daily Telegraph, and every Sydney newspaper. Constantly. Hundreds and hundreds of press clippings about him. But it gets better. He also wrote operatic comedies. He wrote a book called The Sins of My Father, which was republished 4 times by Angus and Robinson. He was also the best friend of Cardinal Moran, who was the Archbishop of Sydney. When he died, 250,000 people went to his funeral. And Archbishop Moran wrote this paper about the fact the Spanish came here and declared Australia the Holy Ghost of Australia in 1606, and it belongs to the Vatican City. That went down very well with the government. And when Moran died, who wrote the paper for him? Slater did. In 1898, when he went up to Gladstone, Slater wrote an edition just dedicated to Archbishop Moran. Slater was also, in 1929 and in 1939, I've got the paper, there were 13 blocks of land that were gazetted by the government to be looked after a public estate. Only 2 of them for original people. And both those sites, Burragurra and Mount Yango, Slater written papers on. And the paper he wrote on Mount Burragurra was presented to the Congress of Scientists in New Zealand and Australia and received enthusiastically. Yet 2 years later, that same paper is stamped cancelled by Sydney Uni, by the Department of Tropical Research and Medicine. Well, they know a lot about archaeology. They stamped it and called it off. What he was doing in that paper, the Burragurra paper, I'll tell you what he said. This is what he spoke about. He spoke about by army landing in a ship. And his wife, Purunagulu, it says very specifically by Slater, was not born of the earth, but was born of the stars above. She did not come from here. But when they got there, No Name, that's what he's called. I don't know what his name is because it's referred to as No Name. He was one of Byami's sons, and he looked around and said, nah, don't like it, I'm going. So he went off, his brother tracked him, and by the way, No Name didn't eat meat. This is quite interesting. He was a vegetarian. And Bubadi was. He ate meat. And he said, I'm leaving you. And what he did was, he climbed up in a tree, this is what's written there, that mingled with the sky, and when it took off, fire and smoke came out of the bottom. And it went up to the Southern Cross, and there he lives to this day. That was the Burragurra paper. Now you would think the government would say, nah, not touching that. You'd think that, wouldn't you? This is what happened. 1929, the Burragurra rock platform was given back to the government, to the people, and they nominated 5 trustees. Professor Shells here was the first one, and guess what the second name was? Frederick Slater. By the government. The Governor General chose him. In 1939, 10 years later, they then gave them Mount Yango, and they nominated the trustees. And the trustees were Professor Shell is here, and guess who's next? Frederick Slater. And who's after that? A lawyer, a magistrate, I forget the other 2. Every job was the top level. And who is he hanging around with? Archbishop of Australia, the most credentialed Catholic person in Australia was the Archbishop Moran. He was the first one that was an archbishop. We didn't have one before then. Hangs around with him, hangs around with doctors, lawyers, principals, you name it. But he's an idiot. And his work amounts to nothing. On the plaque I've got, a silver plaque, that the people in 1932 in Newcastle wrote, they wrote a plaque that said how much the people working with esteemed his work and his companionship. And they said he was a wonderful person. So we've got 2 stories now. One from the critics of today saying he's nobody. One, the press clippings, the papers, the 5 papers we've got. The Courier Mail said there was none. We've got 5. All of that came from Slater. Now let's talk about the language. This first book, oh, I don't have any more of the first books, they're gone. But if you can go up one, just let me know and we'll send it to you. The first book is called, oh God, what is it? Something of Discoveries, isn't it? I'm not sure. Because he broke it into 4 sections. There it is. The Book of Discoveries. The second book is called the Book of Language, where I'm going to give you the whole language, the first language. I'm putting it up. And we already know we're going to get smashed for doing it. But I've got to make a point. Slater said, with this, I can read any ancient writings, engravings, anywhere in the world. He said, this is... Sorry?
Smashed by who? You said you were going to get smashed by publishers.
Oh, sorry.
Who is going to do it?
Oh, God. Some elders. Oh, God, yeah. I'm walking on really troubled ground here. But the point is this. The language was given to the world. What right have I got, now that I've found it, to not let the world speak the language that we know was there? Because even the Bible tells us there was a time when we spoke one language. If we could all speak one language, things change. I don't have to rely on someone else telling me what they're saying anymore, because they're normally lying anyway. You get to find out for yourself. So that's the difference there, ladies and gentlemen, this language. Now, what it's based off is this. There are 10 base words. 3 are in the book, but in the next book they're all there. Then there are 7 words, and they are the base words for every word spoken. I'll give you an example. The first word there is the word mal, M-A-A-L. Number of ma, M-A, is 1. You take it, halve it up. And then I've got elsewhere in a book where I've got ma and then 7 other prefixes added on the end. And each one it changes slightly. Then you can put suffixes on the other side. 17 base languages, 25 suffixes, 25 prefixes. And at the last stage, when Slater was putting this together, was up to 28,000 words. First language. Go to your history books and see what they'll tell you it is. It's grunts, spear, food, and maybe bang a woman on the head and drag her around with her hair. That's about it. That's the sum total of it. Yet this one is welcome to the divine light. Man came to earth with his 7 senses fully developed. 7, not 5, 7. This is what Slater's talking about. He's reporting all this information to us, all of this stuff, and what we're reading now is a lot of people have written stories about original history. This is the one we wrote. Not the one someone come along with a university and said, I know what's going on here. This is the one we wrote. And that's what the elder gave to Eliza Hamilton Dunlop. And the reason that he got this is because he worked with her grandson, Goddard. And Goddard didn't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole because his picture's up in Sydney Uni. He didn't want to give this. And in fact, in one paper, Goddard wrote a paper with Slater. And Goddard did the geology. Slater told us there were aliens here and stuff like that. And the stamp of cancelled is on Slater's part, but not on Goddard. He's fine. He's okay. So he's fine. If he had taken that on, he would have been treated like Slater. So what did Slater try and find? Basically this. That we had a language, and I'm going to make a rule about this when I put the book up. I'm going to make it very clear. You are not allowed to use this language profanely. You must pick the time you speak it. I've only spoken it aloud once to 2 elders. And it worked. I won't tell you what they said, that's not important, but I wanted to find out, and it worked. You have to use it properly. You have to say these words and use them like a mantra. Go out to the bush, go out to the beach, go somewhere where you can become spiritual, because this is called soul language. That's its other name, spirit and soul language. That's what Slater calls it. And everything in it, every description, it's all about being spiritual. The words that I see the most, the 2 words you see the most in this interpretation are, number 1, came to earth. Number 2, the spirit. Nothing else. It's all about that. And this was the time, according to Slater, when civilization was at its peak. And he made it clear, civilization should never be measured by material measures. Civilization is emboldening the soul. And that's what this civilization was doing. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we had technology. We walked away from it. That's what this is about. You see, after Atlantis and all this conflagration took place, it's like a nightmare. That's why most of it's been hidden. And what the blackfella said was, well, that worked out well, didn't it? We're not going there again. So what they did was, they threw away their machines. They threw away their clothes and went back and lived with nature. just like the naked sadhus in India do. Now, we're doing the same thing. In fact, you've got to remember, the Indian people, even to this day, there was a mitochondrial DNA survey done in India, in southern India, and 7 people who were surveyed have distinct, unique Aboriginal genetic codes. They're not Indian. We went everywhere. We went everywhere. In America, they've found, I think, around about 78 skulls and 250 skeletons of original people. And some are dated 30, 40,000 years. And they've called them original, or aboriginal they call them, we call them original. So we've been everywhere. This is part of the deal. Our genes, we have strands of genes that no one in the planet has. Do you know why? They're Pleiadian. They're there to this day. You can ask a scientist and say, oh yeah, they've got a strand of genes, we don't recognise it. You never will. Oh, they could. They could do this, and then they would recognise it, but they don't. So ladies and gentlemen, Slater has the first book. In the change that comes, if I have anything to do with education, because I have done a lot with education over the years, I would make that language mandatory for our children. And I would make sure when they're learning that language, they'd be sitting down by the beach in the park somewhere, and they'd be learning how to say it with reverence. And that will make them better people. And we need that in the future. So that's very important. So Slater is, for me, how much time have I got, mate? Sorry about that. I've got to try and make sure we don't send everyone to sleep.
4:30.
Right. You ready? Okay.
Steve, do you want to do a Q&A at any stage?
Well, we will, because I'll leave about 10 minutes at the end of it. Okay, what I'm going to do, I was going to do this last because I can time it. Okay? So I'll stop at 10:02. Tell me when it is 10:02. Wherever we're up to here, we'll stop. Now, we're going to read from this book. And in it, it's incredibly expensive. Dimics is $85. We're selling it for $50, and Dimics are pathetic. It costs us $32 to get the book to us. And Leah and I have got to split the money between us. They're going to $85 and stuff, and a lot of other book companies are doing it too, and I think they're doing it so people won't buy it. It's crap. It shouldn't be that price. What it is, what's in here? Leah Capitelli. Very quickly, I need to introduce you for 5 minutes and let's get into it. I heard Leah speak about 10 years ago down in Rye in Victoria. She spoke about the fact that she was channeling a person by the name of Mesref, which is the front cover here. And this being had been with her in past lives and sent her down here, and she didn't want to come. So what actually happened is there's another picture of Mesref there, and I've got to show you the next page because there's the boss, and it's a woman. You need to understand that. Let's keep this straight from the beginning. She's the boss of everyone, all the aliens. Mesref is second in charge. As he said to us often, I write the script. She checks it. Make sure it comes out right. So what happened was, she was talking about the fact she was talking with all these aliens and stuff, and it was a great talk. I said to her at the finish, this is very good. I said, but you're going to need to prove to me you're legit. So what I did was I asked her 10 questions. The last 2 questions my wife didn't know. She got them all right. And that's when I stopped doubting. I need empirical evidence first, and I got it. He could not know some of the things that I asked because I was the only person that knew about it happening. How he would know that is beyond me, but he does. He takes interest in some people, particularly people who are hopeless and pathetic. He's taken a lot of interest in me. Oh, I'm not joking. That's what he looks for. Believe me. So you don't know my full story. I certainly qualify for both hopeless and pathetic. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to page 123. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read from transcript 1. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the question I would have asked Mesref, and he's going to speak the voice of Mesref. And what we'll do is we'll go over these for about 20 minutes. When we'll stop, then we'll go to question and answer, okay? You guys will let me know when that's up because I just have no idea of time and I don't even wear a watch. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to talk about, and I'll get through most of that, is I wanted to talk about that ceremony was at. I wanted to ask him questions about that. So the first set of questions run around that. The first question I asked was this, and it's a very simple one. I know ETs are here, but why would they bother to come here, of all places? Over to you, Mesref.
And we have been here since day one. It is a mixture of parental compassion as well as honouring certain alliances of ancient past. Humans have been here, humans have been in contact with us for a very, very long time. We believe humans have the potential to reclaim those old times, to reclaim those old ways to survive these new days. Humans have a mixture of resentment for the old, but there's also a fear of the new. Constant fear and constant anxiety will only ever lay down a path of darkness. We are trying to change that.
Okay, so there's his answer to that one. So they're here for a reason. It's only benevolent. These people who try and build up this thing about the fact they're trying to kill us, for God's sake, if they wanted to do it, they could have done it. And they still could. We're nothing. Okay, next question. I asked him, and I won't read all that out. I'm just going to go to the bottom. I asked him about the ceremony, and primarily, was it successful? Over to you, mate. Next page.
The ceremony was a landmark in many ways because it proved to not just humans, but to us that you can work together for a common goal. And when humans connect and you stick to something, you have that in common desire in that moment. It has affected the whole planet. Can you imagine what 8 billion people can create? Imagine how many strides forward you can achieve with this. It was a test and you passed it with flying colours, but there are many more challenges ahead. Can you remember that solution for the next challenge, we wonder? 15 million people opened the door, but it takes the world to change the world.
Okay, so yes, it was successful. I was a bit concerned about the fact, I thought once we've done that, we're sweet. It's going to be 1,000 years of just hanging around smiling at each other. No, there's more to come. Evil never goes away, but at the moment evil is out of control. There's no balance on this planet anymore. And the experiment was to put a balance of good and evil here and then try and see if all different races and beings can learn to live together. That's what this is all about. Okay, the next one is about the Schumann resonance here, and primarily I asked him, were you guys involved in that, or did we do it? And he said,
it was mostly you when you tuned in. At the same time, it was uncomfortable to feel its effects. Not only can you turn it up and down, but you can also balance it for yourselves. We also added our spark to it. It was a way for us to see you and you to see us.
Which we did, because he was there. Okay, the next one talks about the Schumann resonance, where I talk about the fact that it's fluctuated all over the place. And I asked him, why is it still changing so much? So I went with that one, please, mate.
The bumps and spikes will continue to ensure that you remember the lessons. We're going to keep that pressure to see if you can do it again. The ceremony was a lesson, but what we are doing now is the real test. And the results of this test will prove that you can not only control the Schumann resonance, but your fate too.
I want to make a point here. I won't be reading this one, but I'm going to talk about this now. I've said this before. I've got to tell you, all up there, there is something about us that they absolutely adore. And you know, I've had a lot of problem with that one. I've tried to trick him quite a few times to catch what it is, because he won't tell you some things. He thinks some things you don't need to know. And I did think on one occasion I got him, because I said this, tell me, Mesref, what is it you most like about humans and what most disappoints you? And I thought I'd get 2 sentences and I'd get it out of him. He gave me a 1-sentence answer. He said, the multitude of ways you avoid the test. I said, oh God. No, I didn't get it. So in other words, he admires the fact that we're so duplicitous and we won't face what we're here for. Remember, if we don't face that test, we don't deserve to stay anymore. That's what this is about. So he's brought it up again. Okay, the next one. Right. What are we now? Okay. Oh yeah, you're right. The next one was this. I asked about reincarnation after. I said, what's going to take place then? Are we all coming back? Because I've been told by all these different people, most of us won't be, and some will. But I want to make a point, very important point. Let's say the number is around 15%, which I suspect it could be. What about the person that was ranked 15.00001%? Do they get the same punishment as George Soros and Bill Gates? No. They're one life off. One more act, and they come back. This was made very clear to me time after time. No one has been sent to hell. No one's been banished. It's simply a matter of preservation. You could not incarnate on this planet unless your soul is evolved. And that's what you have to do now. This is the time to do that. So this is what this is about. The next one we've got is, right. Yeah, what did they say? Yeah.
Souls will be able to reincarnate, but few will successfully pass through. Those who recall their lessons may re-enter, but those who willfully forget will not. This leaves the door open for them to come back when they have.
Because where they're going to go next is not on a planet that resonates at 400 on the Schumann resonance. I'll go to a planet that resonates on 7.6 or 0.3 depending on the measurement, which is what the Earth was doing, and they will go there and do their lessons there. And when they've got it right, they come back here. So there is something so special about this place. And you've got to remember, and of course, I don't know what it is because he will not tell me, but that's not through lack of trying. But the next one we've got. What's this about? Okay. Oh yeah, I wanted to know, okay, let's say that has happened. I wanted to know what happens next for the ones who stay. I mean, I would say, I might be wrong, but the great majority of people in this room probably will. So what is next? This is going to be 1,000 years of peace and harmony. I already knew that wasn't the case, but I wanted to know what is there for us if we stay? And this is what he said.
There is nothing for those who side with fear over opportunity. Choices define existence as there is a consequence to each, even if you believe you made the right one. Like most civilizations that have come before you, you have come to a point where choice is no longer an option. Don't worry, you will overcome any challenge if you remember and work together as a group. Hearing you say that you can change is always lovely when you are safe and content, but we wonder if that will extend when you are faced with danger.
Okay, one of the things that Mesref has told me time after time after time is in the past karma was a seed that gradually grew. He said now karma is consequence and you will get immediate consequence to your action. If you do something that's not in accord with what the Hopi, notice that he's talking about old teachings again, like the Hopi are talking about old teachings. If you're not in accord with old teachings, you will actually not stay. Are we getting close?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, just really consider the question on.
All right. Well, that was chapter 1. There are 12 transcripts in here, and what they are is me thinking up questions, and we've done this now about 20 times, and I'm running out of questions, I can tell you. And then he answers them. We do a monthly online presentation, and it's free. And we're going to put up a second book and put in more. What I can tell you about Mesref is this. They all came here for one reason. They want us to become part of them. What they've said is this. We are no longer, we're not denizens of the earth, we're galactic citizens. And they want us to be part of that. But I'm going to close with this. I asked him once, well, why don't you come down now? And he said, that would be like breaking into a child's bedroom, has a gun loaded. We will not break in until they put your gun down. And at the moment, you look around. They're not coming now. They don't trust us. We have to earn their trust. And ladies and gentlemen, the trust will be earned through this ceremony we spoke about and what Mesref is talking about now. And at that, I best stop because we've got to do 10 minutes of questions. Okay, so who's running the questioneering? Ah, Fiona over there, somebody I know. Oh, no, I don't know you. You're brand new. Yes, Fiona. Mike coming. Otherwise, I was going to stand next to you. I was going to go over and stand next to her.
Is that better?
Oh, yes.
I'm an ET. I am originally from Sirius, and I first landed on this planet at about the same time as the Dreamtime creatures were about. And I woke up in 2000. Spent 4 years in the Flinders. There's a reason for this, so I'll read it as quick as I can. But there's some good news. As of yesterday, I was prompted to contact a good friend who you actually know, because there was a feeling that something was missing. And so I rang her up, and within minutes, she and I, we both spent a lot of time in the Flinders Ranges. We were adopted by the Anatomical people, and therefore I feel I have their permission to speak of this. They know my story. What happened basically, as some of you may know, is that Enki and Enlil had a pitched battle, and Enlil vanquished his brother and removed 70% of our DNA. Now, recently Enki reappeared, full of regret, because Enlil had been imprisoned, and his intention is to return that missing section of our DNA, and he was very keen to do that. for some reason or other yesterday this question came up, and my friend and I over Zoom did a meditation, and we found ourselves at Uluru. And so we asked why this was actually happening, and she said that she suddenly felt this incredible pain come down her right side, and suddenly there were two serpents, one of whom was very ferociously attacking her. So we quickly surmised that there was a reason for something to be released, and that was the information that Enki is busting to give us back our DNA so that we can realize our true selves and retain that consciousness that we lost. So we leapt into action, and we were assisted by an ethereal elder from Uluru to whom we gave great respect, and it was a Kadacha man. He stood there with a very tall spear. So we said, goodness, what are we going to do? This serpent's attacking my friend, and we then contacted a friend in the etheric who has the grandmother law, whom Steve knows very well, and she said, for goodness sake, negotiate. So and the evil serpent immediately removed himself, and that left us with the positive version. And we realized that these were the two brothers of the Dreamtime stories of certainly the Flinders Ranges and elsewhere. And one of them was indeed representative of Enki. So we said, come on, dude, it's about time that you gave humanity a chance to level the playing field. So he said, right, I'm bringing back that DNA. It's now being grounded. Now. And with that, the spear was banged in the ground by our elder standing with us, and that energy came down. And at that point, a rainbow bridge opened up over the top of the Flinders Ranges, up the Flinders, from what you might term the control room, which is down in the Flinders. We know where it is. It's where a certain edifice landed and bounced, and then flew a little bit further north and landed upside down. So that rainbow bridge was opened, the energy flowed up to Uluru, opened up a portal, and a huge green signal flare shot off into the cosmos. The result of that, we have to await, but basically what we felt was that this is the permission that humanity has been given to stay here, provided that we take in this lesson of enhanced consciousness. And the other thing, if I may continue, Mark, very quickly, and I'm so sorry, Steve, to take your time, but this is something that's just come up, is that where we go one, we go all. And we have spent a lot of time communing with upstairs, and they're not going to separate us. We are going to be able to stay on this planet as we understand it, provided that we take everybody with us. And where we go one, where we go all is, if you like, the abbreviation for the law of one. Where one is helped, all are healed, but where one is harmed, all are hurt. So we've got a bit of work to do, but we're up for it. And this group is very august in that you all have an awareness of what is happening in the other realm. So it's up to us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
If I can just add a quick PS, it is that this is a very positive time right now, and there's a few references. Fiona mentioned the law of one. There's a wonderful document, apparently the most highly classified by the US Defense Intelligence Agency document. Some of you may have heard of it. It goes under the title of the Majestic 12. And that originated in 1947 post-Roswell. And a couple of the interesting quotations that we've included in the sovereigntycard.com, if you look it up, that we're just in the process of facilitating, is that it is the awakening of our God magic, aka our DNA. And furthermore, that the Great Awakening is unstoppable and that it is majestic. So think about it. This was formally classified in 2016 or 2018. It was declassified. In other words, it was the time now for humanity to officially be made known of the fact of who they actually are, i.e. we're more than just mortal beings that eat and defecate and fornicate. We're actually substantially more. So apart from which it is reported by the likes of alexcollier.org, Michael Sawa, who you've probably all heard of many times, that there are craft in stationary orbit. The reason that they're here is because we are the DNA product of many, many races, and we are seen as the future of humanity. Our consciousness is indeed awakened and is awakening, and so now is the time. We've seen protests all over the planet. We've seen 3 million people on the streets in Canberra. If you extrapolate that, that sort of comes out to somewhere around 70 or 80% of the population of this country, and indeed, by extension, the planet. So, you know, and that's it. And thank you very much. And thank you, Steve. You're a master. And love you.
How about that?
Bob Crombie's here. Know you well, yes. Look, people forget this process began a lot earlier than this. It began before the Olympic Games, in preparation for the Olympic Games, because Sydney and Royal National Park was part of that. Royal National Park and Uluru and Caratuda and the Kimberley all connected by a long song line. And that song line had to be activated by them for the Olympic Games to ensure the success of the Olympic Games. And that was in African myth and legend. And people came from all around the world to Royal National Park in the years preceding the Olympic Games to activate it. They also did the same with Uluru and Caratuda and up in the Kimberley and at certain sites in between. So I just wanted to let people's attention to that, and we've been to some of those sites too and felt their impact. So it's a pretty good place.
Thank you, Bob. You're right. There have been many ceremonies for this.
I'll just be quick. The gentleman over here talked about our DNA. My question to you is, our DNA is clearly based on a mathematical structure with algebraic properties. Can I put it to you, where do you believe our DNA came from? Off planet?
According to Slater, he made a very interesting comment about this. He said we were brought from off planet, and the writings he put, and it's in the second book. Oh, sorry, I'll stand up, it's easier. According to Slater, he would say this, that our DNA comes from off-world, and then what happened was we were buried in the ground for a large period of time. And Mesrev talks about the fact that we came off-world and then we were hatched in the earth. What's interesting in that story, he talks about the men being buried, but the women weren't. The women weren't. There's no mention of the women. The women were there when they got buried, and when they came out, they were there again. So my understanding is yes. And what Mesrev has said is, yeah, we are a creation that they made, but then another group, you were talking about earlier, which they call the Zarnish, came here and they interfered with our DNA and changed it negatively. Okay? And that's the problem. The first plan, what they had was great. The second one was rubbish. And we're the outcome of that. Yep.
With Mesrev, is he the primary alien who's given you contacts and answers? That's the first question. And the second question is Mesrev of an intergalactic source or a Pleiadian source, or is there some other answer to that?
Yeah, right, the second one. The first one's easy. Is he the primary alien? Yes, he is. There's a conference they have, it's a group, and he is the one, there is no leader as such, but he is the one they go to and check. But I made the point again, and I showed you the picture, there's a woman who turns up occasionally. And I asked her, she goes and whispers in their ears. She said, "Will I make a laudable comment?" And I said, "Does anyone disagree?" He just laughed and said, "Oh, way." No, if she tells us tomorrow's yesterday, that's what it is. So it works like that. That's pretty straightforward. That. The second part of the question was again?
Were they intergalactic source
Yeah, okay. No, Mesrev is a different situation again. Mesrev, I mean, he made this clear. Every soul was made in creation, and the souls existed before creation too. I want to make that point. He made that very clear. And he said, by the way, there have been 7 big bangs. This is the last. There have been 6 before, and they're still tracking them in the voids. Yeah. So the answer there is no. He comes from the very beginning. He was the very, very first race that was formed. He doesn't he doesn't die, and they envy the fact that we do. And his job, basically, he has been on this planet before it was created. That's how, and that group of people have invested into this planet more than any other planet in the cosmos. And his job is to, until it's finished, until this is complete, he stays. Then I don't know what he does past that point. But he's not Pleiadian. He's the beginning of all races, the first one that came.
So with the Big Bang, is that, you're saying that 7 Big Bangs, that's not only relative to Earth, though?
No, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. He says, you guys, we don't understand what life is. We haven't got a clue. We've locked it into a couple of minimal areas and we think that's life. Those rocks are alive, right? The trees are alive. But if you went and said that 30, 40 years ago, they'd laugh at you and think you're an idiot. But everything is alive. He said, and he's on this planet, he said, there's a million places you don't know about. So everything about this, we virtually know nothing about where we are. His role is to try and convince us to walk away from what we're doing and walk towards what he's offering. And that's why he put these books up. I mean, honestly, I've got to be honest with you, when we do this, I'm petrified. I don't normally worry about talking to anyone. I've done it for years, and it's not an issue for me. I was a teacher, I got paid for that. But I hate dealing with him because I have no idea. When I ask a question, I got a pretty good idea what I'm going to get. With him, it's chaos. I have no idea what's going on because his knowledge of wisdom. Somebody said, you made that up. I said, oh, thank you very much. I didn't know I had an IQ of 472. I thought it was just something low, just over 100. I said, there's no way. The stuff he comes up with, I can't think of it. And for me, what he's trying to do now is, because aliens can't directly interfere. They cannot interfere. They're not allowed to. But they can indirectly. You can say, we made that up. You don't have to read it. But if you do read it, you'll get a better idea of why you're here. That's what I've learned from this. In dealing with Mesref, I've only had 2 elders that I really respect. I mean, Auntie Bev's pretty important, but Kano is #1 for me. Auntie Bev's close, Uncle Marbach's close. But Mesref is the equal of Kano. And I know that Kano is working with Mesref right now, preparing us for this change. That's the point we've got to finish on, ladies and gentlemen. It is definitely going to happen. Now, they're going to do everything they can to create the fear, I told people 5, 6 years ago there would be a pandemic in the final years. I said they'd be talking about world wars. I was told that by my elders. They will do everything they can to scare the crap out of us. And it's working. But remember what I said, fear is the mind killer. When you're fearful, you won't evolve. And what's happening is this mob know that it's over. But they're doing what Hitler did when he lost the war. When he left the country, what did he do? Trashed it. And what are they doing? Same thing. And really, using Hitler as an comparison to some of the people we've got today, I'm probably insulting Hitler. I think some of the ones we've got, Hitler loved his mother and wanted to be an artist. Some of these people haven't even got that going for him, and his dogs. He liked them too. Some of these people are really leading now have got nothing.
Thank you, sir.
Last one.
Last one.
Thank you. Have you ever asked Mesref when things might improve on Earth? You know, is there some sort of timeline for when things might
Yeah, I did once and I realised I was wasting my time. He won't tell us that. I think the deal with this is, look, this is, I wrote in the back of this book here, if you had the chance to talk to God, would you take it? And I said, only a fool would say no. Well, what about the next in line? He is the next in line. But he can be so incredibly cryptic. If you've ever heard our shows with him, it really, sometimes, when he said something, I'm just sitting there thinking, I've got nothing to say, and sometimes I can't. He has written the script. He's told us the script is written and the conclusion is there. But he made one other point, a very important point. He said it will be an incredible bumpy and brutal road. The word brutal was used about 5 years ago. He said what you're going to get next is not like anything that's been on this planet. Everyone will be fearful, everyone will be scared, people will look at each other, and they'll even get to the stage where we don't want to shake hands. I mean, I've been playing tennis for a long period of time, and up until 2 weeks ago, everyone at the end of the match would touch rackets. We didn't shake hands. This is 2 weeks ago, and I finally said, I'm done with this. If I'm not touching rackets, you either shake hands with me or we don't do it. And they did. And they all wanted to do it. I could tell. But they were touching each other. And you know why they did that? If we don't shake hands with each other, if we stop touching each other, if we stop relating to each other, we become economic statistics, consumers. We're not human anymore. And that's what this is taking away. And they will continue doing it until the last day. Mesrith made this clear. They will take as many prisoners as they can. Your job is, if you know better, in the time that's left, your job is to tell others. And they'll say that's a load of rubbish. Well, then tell them this. Go to our website, go to the article we've got up there where we put up all those pictures I showed you of what happened at Uluru when the rock exploded. And you ask them, how do you do that? And they won't have an answer. And my point is that right now, this is the time of what we blackfellas call seed dreaming. Seed dreaming. You throw the seeds everywhere. Most times, you know what's going to happen? Nothing. It won't germinate. But sometimes it will. And I've been telling people this for quite some time. Don't go back and seed dream them 4 times. You'll nag them. Do it once. And if they don't work it out, then you say to yourself, I did my best. I'll move on. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what they want you to do. And you people are obviously quite aware because you're sitting here right now and put up with 4 hours of me, which I wouldn't do. I'd be asleep. So therefore, obviously you've got those talents. So believe me, ladies and gentlemen, that's the purpose of this. The aliens want this to happen. They want us to be part of a galactic community. But we don't deserve it at the moment. We haven't got the runs on the board. 15 million meditated for an hour. Great, that's a good start. But what he said later is, I want more. He didn't stop at that. He wanted more. So that's the point, ladies and gentlemen. And your role is simple. If you have people you love, people you care about that haven't got it, have another go. And if they tell you when they're finished, no, I'm not interested, that's their decision. Because Mesrith said this, consequences rule now. Everything has a consequence. And it's yours, no one else. The best part of this story is this. What we've got now, the birds are safe. The insects are safe. Every animal on this planet is now safe. And there's one animal that isn't, and at the moment, that's fair enough. I'm not arguing with it. We have to earn the right to stay, and that's what you've got to tell them. And that's what this is all about. Tomorrow and the days that follow are all about earning that right to stay on this planet. This gentleman's got a quick one at the back.
Very quick, nuclear weapons. I've read that they will intervene if we launch nuclear weapons.
Absolutely. I can tell you that now. He's made it very clear to me. They will not let us destroy ourselves. They've flown over silos, and you guys will all know this, and they've turned them off. Yeah, they can do it, and they will. They've told me this. We will not let you destroy yourself. We put too much time and effort into this place to see you people destroy it. They won't let us do that. That's when they will step in, but it won't happen. They won't let it happen.
Steve, those beautiful words before Cano's pictures went up, are they on your website?
Yeah, yeah. Everything is. Oh, Kano's stuff is all on my website.
That says it all.
Yeah, it does. Kano always said it all.
Yeah. Okay, well I think that concludes it. Thank you very, very much for both of you.
Okay. Thank you.